Welcome back to this channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of what if Naruto learned about the Kyuubi at the age of 5. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no more time, let's start the story.
5 clones were created by Naruto, who divided them into 2-person teams, one of which included the original. The creation of the Fuden Rasengan was initiated by the real Naruto and his clone. 2 distinct Rasengans were made by the other groups. Because of the way the water blob was moving spasmodically, the first group began creating a ball of people with good eyes to watch as tiny water particles began to form inside the chakra until it was a glob of uncontrollable substance. Clone Naruto tightened his eyes, feeling where they should be, and then opened them a moment later. The ninja surrounding him saw the water blob appear to burst inside the Rasengan, and 2 seconds later they noticed tiny water particles moving in unison with the Rasengan chakra. The elemental water and the Rasengan's chakra seemed to be one and the same. Even though the water particles were only a pin's size, the volume of them made it appear as though a tsunami of water and chakra was flowing through a chaotic yet regulated space. He nodded at the Rasengan's condition, continued to focus, and gradually water started to form on his hand. Naruto moved his chakra clone to the Rasengan with a slight push. They were even more shocked when they saw tiny streams of water float around the Rasengan after sliding down Naruto's hand and onto it. 3 rings of water encircled the Rasengan, which revolved at incredible speeds around the first elemental Rasengan ever observed. The rings never lined up together. Instead, each one rotated in a different direction. The entire procedure took 1 minute. The others were even more taken aback by the overwhelming force that the elemental Rasengan was radiating. It felt like it was easily S-ranked. The clone exclaimed, "Suika Rasengan, Maelstrom spiraling sphere." Then he ran to a tree and made sure there was a mountain miles away behind it. In an instant, you saw a raging tornado of water shooting outwards, destroying the tree, the ground, and everything in its path after he slammed the water sphere into the tree. When the water poured in a torrent, it quickly tore into the mountain until it subsided and was absorbed by the ground after a few minutes. Everyone's mouths were on the ground and their eyes were wider than ever. The ripped ground was used as a river channel as the water began to recede into the ocean. The most unexpected elemental chakra Rasengan was the other one. It was actually a ball of fire with spinning lava and superheated chakra inside. The ground was starting to burn as the water surrounding the 2 clones vanished in a matter of seconds. 6 balls of concentrated fire and 3 rings of pure fire surrounded the artificial sun. Then, 500 to 1,000 yards out, the clone ran over the ocean's surface before slamming the ball into the water and yelling. The solar spiraling spheres, Taiyo Rasengan. When the ball struck the water, the group was precisely the right distance from the epicenter, which caused a blast of steam, lava, and pure fire. The explosion traveled nearly 200 yards into the sky and roughly 1,000 yards in diameter to reach the epicenter for landing. It appeared as though a flaming meteor had just struck the Earth, creating the mini-sun. An enormous tidal wave was moving toward land in all directions. To stop the wave from going to the mainland, Kakashi, Haku, Zabuza, Naruto, Rin, and Yamato had to work hard. The extreme heat caused even the clouds above to part. When Naruto demonstrated his 2 most powerful moves, which were actually very powerful, the group fell silent and stared at him as though he were a cage. At last, Naruto broke the silence by saying, "Ehehe ops." Everyone yells, "Holy shit," at once. Before Naruto could finish, he passed out from exhaustion. "I think we should go inside before I." After the mission was completed, the group made the decision to simply take a short break before returning home. A week later, at the bridge's completion now, Naruto and his companions stood at the bridge's end. Tazuna and his family were in the crowd in front of them. After saying their goodbyes, the group began to depart when they heard someone cry out. Someone shouted, "Naruto," and Naruto and the others turned to see Inari rushing up and giving Naruto a tight hug. Naruto questioned his younger brother figure, "What is it, Inari? Will you be able to visit us soon, Naruto?" "Nisan?" replied Inari. Naruto grinned and said, "Hi, I will." Inari, Tazuna shouted, "And Naruto about that place." Naruto waved Tazuna over and said, "Oh yay, come here, Tazuna-san." The 2 then proceeded into the woods. "Shall we see what they are discussing?" Tazuna nodded when Naruto said, "Okay, I want to be a silent partner of the place and make sure that all the money I gave you goes to repairing the Wave Country. And by that I only mean you, Tazuna said, thinking, well, the women that were prostitutes there will probably stay there to work there since their families are all dead or sold off, so they will run it for us. Well then let them work there and operate it for free room and board. And when you all chase out the feudal lord, make yourself the lord and run wave right. With the help of the inn you could give luxury to diplomats and people of high power and influence a residents to stay in so you can raise more money for the country. I don't mind sending my own stream of money into the redevelopment of Wave since I am almost a multi-millionaire on thanks to my family's money, clan's money, and my money that I earn. Naruto is surprised by Tazuna. Tazuna proposed, receiving a nod from Naruto. Well, then I guess we will then have to come up with a name. How about K's Nami Inn? Suits your name and abilities, right? Well, hopefully in the future when the country gets back on its feet you will come to Konoha Somi and you can set up that feed of money. Hell, if you ever need another ninja for anything just ask for me, alright, I would love to come visit you guys. The brunette said. Naruto-san, I will do just that. Once this country is back to normal and prospering we will need that extra money later on. And maybe Inari could use the extra guidance from you. Hell, if the country prospers enough we will make our own hidden village. Tazuna pictured it and Naruto laughed. Naruto walked back to the group as Tazuna returned to the crowd, saying, well, send a letter to Tazuna-san when you get Wave back on its feet because now I have to get going. The audience nodded in agreement when Tazuna said, well, there goes a great ninja, don't you all think? Tsunami questioned, on your father, what will we name the bridge? Tazuna proposed, how about the Great Tazuna Bridge? But was struck in the back of the head by the tsunami. How about the Great Naruto Bridge Oji-san? Inari proposed, eliciting nods from the audience. The crowd cheered as Tazuna exclaimed, all right, the Great Naruto Bridge it is, before heading to the village to begin rebuilding their priceless nation. Alongside the group rushes back to Konoha so they can finally rest and get rid of the heads because there isn't a single citizen to slow them down. After 6 hours returning to Konoha required 6 hours of running with a few stops. The group is currently approaching the gate, and as they land there, a group of Anbu land surrounds them. The leader of the Anbu, wearing a weasel mask with Sharingan eyes. You can guess who he is, and I'll give you a cookie XD, then raised his voice. Kakashi Hitaki, what are you doing with 2 S-class missing nin and an unknown civilian? If you do not word you answers correctly it is a court-martial and time in prison, understood? The leader replied while Kakashi nodded. Kakashi Hitaki with Yamato and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, are coming back from a C-rank turned S-rank mission to Wave and have brought back these nin to be stood in front of Hokage Sama in order for them to join the Leaf Village, and also due to them being under the protection of the Namikaze clan head there will be under no circumstances a finger laid onto them until they are judged truthfully. Kakashi stated this with an authoritative and serious tone. After receiving a nod from Kakashi, the Anbu said, very well, but until you reach the Hokage Tower my squad is to escort you to there with the additionally group of Anbu hidden in this respective area. The 2 Anbu groups then left for the tower. In the office of the Hokage 2 of the Hokage's clones are currently working on the paperwork and filing while the group stands in front of him. Sarutobi pulled out a bottle of sake and began sipping it after finishing the summarized report because his headache was getting worse. Okay, this is how it will be. Teiseki and Zabuza will be put until constant surveillance for 6 months while in the Namikaze compound. They will take a test after the set time is over to see if they are true to staying to Konoha. They will be allowed to do only minor C-rank missions and D-rank missions until the time is up. Haku is free to go since she has no status as a ninja and is to be signed up for the academy at once. She will be put into Naruto's class unless she is to go and take the medical course at the hospital. He takes a breather then continues, all 3 of you are officially under the protection of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze's clan, the Namikazes. Therefore the council will be unable to do anything to you 3 without his and my consent. Now that is over with, I will send all the heads to the collections department and send the money for the bounties to the respective people. Rin, since you would like to become a ninja of the leaf again, I am going to have to send a messenger to the daimyo for your transfer papers. Rin nods. Now all but Naruto and Kakashi are dismissed. Yamato, you are to escort these 4 to the compound and get them set into the security system. After I am done with these 2 they will join you later. Understood? Sarutobi said in his Hokage tone of voice, getting a hi Hokage Sama. Then everyone but Naruto and Kakashi left. Sarutobi said in a less authoritative but still serious tone, "Okay, as for you two, I would like the breakdown of the mission to the very last detail. And then Naruto, for you to get me an example of those 3 new versions of Rasengan you made." The two who began breaking down the mission all the way nodded. Sarutobi was pleased to see that the mission was successful in getting Wave back on its feet after he had spent roughly 45 minutes explaining. Then, when Naruto showed Sarutobi the 3 versions, he was astounded to see how powerful they were. Until Naruto can fully master them, he categorizes them as S-class Kinjutsu. Kakashi's mention of Rasengan Sarutobi's most recent form piqued my interest even more. When he inquired about its function, he was taken aback by the demonstration rather than the response. Private training ground for the Hokage. Now standing in the Hokage Tower's private training area are Naruto, Sarutobi, and Kakashi. The third was then instructed by Naruto to pay close attention. Then, summoning the Rasen Shuriken into his grasp, Naruto hurled the spinning disc of pure destruction at the surrounding tree area with a forceful throw that resembled a baseball thrown very quickly. The shuriken-sized disc of the demon windmill flew through several trees. At that moment, the third's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Also with the thought from Kakashi, "Nissan, I will start trying to make elemental variations of the Rasen Shuriken with all 3 of my affinities," Naruto said. "With those in your arsenal of jutsu you would be a great assassin, Naruto-kun. The Rasen Shuriken makes barely any sound when it is thrown, and with the elemental addition it can be even better. And if you make a fire Rasen Shuriken, then using a combination of a wind jutsu to increase its firepower and speed. In other words, the possibilities are endless with Rasengan." Sarutobi also gave the blonde ideas. "I know that Oji-san, and over the remaining of my training I am going to try and create more variations and maybe start up my father's hobby of creating new jutsu." Naruto sighed. "Well, you ought to be returning to the compound right now," the blonde interrupted Sarutobi. To the surprise of the other two, Naruto said in a serious tone, "Oji-san, you and I have to talk for a bit." The man giving the statement nodded. Kakashi nodded and departed via Shunshin, while the elderly man and the blonde returned to the office. "Okay, we will talk in my office, and Kakashi, you are dismissed." Returning to the office, the elderly man said, "What can I do for you, Naruto?" "Well, when Tazuna-san gets Wave back on track, he might come to the Leaf to start up a trade route with us, since he will be the nominee for the next feudal lord for Wave. Also, when he does arrive, could you call for me so me and him can sit down for the trade route setup? I promised Tazuna-san that I would set up a money feed from my personal accounts to Wave's overall money so they can develop faster. Me and Tazuna already have the plan set down, and all we need to do is get it written down with your signature so no one can falsely accuse me of supplying the enemy," said Naruto. "Well, since you and him have it set down, I will agree and send for you when the negotiations are being set. And with you as a hero in Wave, then we can guarantee that the deal will be benefiting both countries. Is there anything else you would like, Naruto-kun?" Sarutobi said. "No, there isn't, Oji-san, so I'll see you later." Naruto rises, bows, and vanishes through Shunshin. Sarutobi shook his head and returned to his paperwork, saying, "That boy is already one of the strongest people in this village with his jutsus, and he's going to make even more." Clan compound. Upon returning to the compound, Vaughn threw Naruto to the ground while licking his face uncontrollably. When Vaughn and Naruto eventually stood up, Anko tackled him once more. After some time, the 3 of them went to the main house and discussed the mission. Naruto observes Taizeki using one of the houses by the waterfall, and Haku and Zabuza occupying one close to the main house. Naruto entered the main house, went upstairs, and fell asleep. Zabuza and Taizeki served their time under close observation for the remaining 5 months of the year, and they showed no concern. After arriving in Konoha, Haku had begun her training to become a medically nin. She even began putting a lot of effort into improving her control so she could use her bloodline and medical jutsu much more effectively. She has easily adapted to the Namikaze clan compound after the council's numerous unsuccessful attempts to turn her into a breeding stock failed. Taizeki, Haku, and Zabuza were given a grand tour of the compound on the second day, and the sheer number of jutsu scrolls in the library truly astounded them. The 3 were either practicing new jutsu, trying to complete the obstacle course in the quickest time, which was obviously set by Naruto, taking a leisurely dip in the hot spring, or simply exploring the village and compound when they weren't engaged in any activity. After the first week, Rin returned as a Jonin, got her paperwork in, and started dating Kakashi. It's safe to assume that they genuinely love one another because they have been going on dates and missions together. 4 months later, Tazuna arrived, and his meeting with Naruto and the third went off without a hitch. Now, Naruto donates roughly 100,000 Ryu per month to Wave's reconstruction fund, with an additional 50,000 going to the inn and Tazuna's family. Naruto was told the inn was popular and now a popular place for any client or wealthy individual to sleep, attracting more people to come and request Tazuna's contracting business. When Tazuna took over the late Gatu's shipping business, Wave's wealth and earnings soared. Because of Naruto, the nation is currently rebuilding at a very rapid pace. In fact, Naruto was becoming known abroad for his work, and Konoha's company began to grow once more. Since his father was the Hokage prior to the Kyuubi attack, things have not been this way. He couldn't help but smile at the beginning of his dream of becoming a legend. Naruto has been putting a lot of effort into improving his already strong skills and abilities ever since he returned. He is still working with his army of nearly 4,000 clones, which he typically trains. 500 were working on improving their ability to manipulate and control chakras. 400 is working to become proficient in all of the seals he is familiar with, learn more complex seals, enhance the seals he is already familiar with, and keep making his own trap seals and other seals. With his Soshigen integrated into it, 300 clones are practicing chakra sensing. He had 200 clones working on creating poison now that he was at home. His Kenjutsu was being practiced by 900 clones. After achieving proficiency in both katana and kodachi, he assigned 300 clones to begin learning the katas for his mother's kodachi style, 300 to learn the katas for the hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, and the remaining 300 to learn the fundamentals of his father's katana style. To train the blonde's reflexes and accuracy, the next 500 clones were divided in half. He will spend the next 500 hours honing his ninjutsu, which includes genjutsu, medical jutsu, and ninjutsu. Additionally, they are attempting to master the 3 affinities of the blonde. His mother's and father's taijutsu styles are being practiced by 400 clones. He is only working on the fundamental katas for his parents because he has mastered his own style. The final 200 were completing his already varied number of forms for Hirishin and Rasengan. He even created 3 Rasen Shuriken variations with them, all of which are elemental variations and are now essentially SS ranked jutsu. 50 were working on Hirishin, and 150 were working on them. Naturally, Naruto kept up his regular physical training. Naruto currently weighs 275 pounds for his bracers and 325 pounds for his vest, and he has the gravity seal at twice the normal gravity. The current weight of Naruto's gloves is 200 pounds. Additionally, he strengthened the resistance of all the resistance seals, making it even more difficult to move around and continue completing his numerous missions with excellence. Kakashi weighs 200 pounds wearing bracers and 250 pounds wearing a gravity sealed vest twice. Yamato has a vest weighing 250 pounds and bracers weighing 200 pounds. Anko weighs 270 pounds for her trench coat and 220 pounds for bracers. Von's gravity seal was now set to 3 times its usual setting. Zabuza had a 100-pound cleaver, 250-pound bracers, and 300-pound chest weight seal placed on it. Teizeki is wearing a gravity seal at twice the normal gravity, 250 pounds of bracers, and 300 pounds on her chest. As a young girl, Haku began with 5 pounds per limb and 10 pounds on her chest. She then increased to roughly 25 pounds per limb and 50 pounds on her chest, but she won't go above 50 pounds per limb and 100 pounds on her chest until she completes her medical training. Rin's bracers weigh 200 pounds, while her vest weighs 250 pounds. Like Kiba and Akamaru, Naruto and Von have become practically inseparable and are frequently spotted together. When Naruto is going anywhere, Von simply sits on his head or shoulder. Naruto has been attracting more and more fangirls every day since he introduced Von. In fact, in order to escape from them all, Naruto and Sasuke must run together. Yes, even at the age of 8, Sasuke has admirers. Naruto's time in the academy was incredibly dull. Every day, he has a clone who sits in class and listens in. There was even a clone of Haku there, who learned the shadow clone jutsu from him and uses it to complete her medical training and schoolwork simultaneously. Of course, she only has enough chakra for one clone. The only positive aspects of the academy were Iruka, Sensei and his friends. Our blonde hero in training has had an extremely successful few years as he continues to grow in strength, skill, knowledge, and intelligence. Over the course of the last 5 months, Naruto and Haku have been getting to know one another. On October 10th, also known as Naruto Uzumaki, Namikaze's 8th birthday, the blonde boy receives something he never imagined he would receive: a party filled with gifts, friends, and family. Probably the best day of his life, so far, was that one. Haku had given the blonde something unexpected that day. He received 2 items from Haku. The first was a necklace in the shape of a fang that was impeccable and crystal clear. She claimed to have created a slight seal to prevent it from melting and to have made it from the purest water she could find. The second moment stunned everyone, including Naruto, when she gave him a gentle kiss on the lips while saying, "Thank you for saving me in Zabuza.2.san." The blonde was left speechless, simply standing there as though he had never kissed a girl before. He had kissed Rei, but this was the first time he had ever received a real kiss. About 4 months have passed since that day, and Naruto and Haku have become very close and have even begun dating to some extent, with Naruto's permission to do so because he believes the two are lovers. Following the first month, Zabuza and Taizeki were released from surveillance, and they have since been working together on a number of B, A, and even S-rank missions. Naturally, the blonde doesn't mind the challenge, and the two have been honing their skills in preparation for a future rematch with Naruto. The three engage in intense combat, which nearly sends the village into a panic due to the explosions and damage. The three were eventually able to teach one another jutsu, with Naruto teaching Zabuza some water and vice versa, and Taizeki some earth and vice versa. After the 9 months were eventually over, Haku became a fully qualified medic and is currently helping out at the hospital part-time. In order to improve their coordination and teamwork with Vaughn, she and Naruto have been completing C-ranked missions. Due to their skills and the fact that Vaughn is their third member, the three have so far been dubbed Konoha's Team Ice Fox. The team is also becoming well known in the ninja community because nearly half of the C-rank missions they complete end up being B-rank because a nin gets hired or gets in the way. The development of the Shunpo no Jutsu, Flash Step, has started as a result of Naruto's rapid efforts over the past 4 months to strengthen his chakra control in order to master Hirishin and control his 3 elemental variations of Rasengan. Naruto has even begun to develop a version of Hirishin that will enable him to travel anywhere in the intermediate area in a flash. With the Hirishin no Jutsu, Naruto can currently move up to 300 yards before running out of space. He was extremely frustrated for the first month because he couldn't get past 2 yards until his Nissan, Kakashi, told him a phrase that his father had said would help him use Hirishin much more effectively. "Don't force the jump, but let the jump pull," he would say. When Naruto finally figured out the mystery of Hirishin, he was thrilled to be able to jump up to 30 yards on his first attempt. By the end of the year, Naruto hopes to have perfected his father's jutsu, developed his own technique, and become the next Yellow Flash, even more skilled than his father was. He currently has roughly 1,000 of his 4,000 clones working on his chakra manipulation and control. He desired to be able to use his genuinely almost limitless chakra supply with little to no stress and to be able to fight for hours on end, which is impressive considering that only Hanzo, the 5 cages, and the 3 Sannin are known to be able to do so. Over time, Naruto actually attempted to create a sub-elemental Rasengan, something he himself believed was impossible. Since ice is one of his primary sub-elements, the Rasengan essentially turns to it. He believes that by controlling his ice element well, he can combine it with the Rasengan to create a blizzard that is nearly as strong as all of the ones in Snow Country combined. They have snowstorms nearly every week, just like Kumo has thunderstorms every day. He has his entire life to make it happen, even though he is having a lot of trouble creating. He knows that he will become a Hanyu and an immortal being, so he has until the end of time or until he is killed to keep creating strong and destructive jutsus. He has already mastered the first technique, Ryu Kan Sen Dragon Wind-Up Flash, which is used once one has gotten beside an opponent. It involves a very powerful swing with the twist of your entire body, inflicting a direct blow under the skull. His Kenjutsu with Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu is progressing at its typically rapid pace. Naruto is beginning with the second technique, Do Ryu Sen Ground Dragon Flash, which involves striking the ground and causing the ground to explode in the direction of the opponent. Since he is aware that all of the techniques require a great deal of power and speed, he is learning them gradually. However, if Ifrit says that his speed is adequate or superior for each technique, Naruto will begin to learn them much more quickly. Unless Naruto masters and creates the Shunpo no Jutsu, just consider how long it takes to reach speeds that are damn near godlike. Dance of the Diamond Dragon is his father's katana style, and Dance of the Crimson Firestorm is his mother's Kodachi style. Naruto is learning the basic techniques for both styles with ease. Ifrit also wanted Naruto to become proficient in both styles before he really got into Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, because he doesn't want him to be distracted too much, because learning 3 styles at once is bad for his mind, even if it is under control and is filtered by Rei almost every day. Imagine how Naruto's mind was when he first saw Kyuubi in the anime, where it was the sewer. When Naruto changed his mindscape, he created a location where all of his knowledge would be stored and arranged for later use, using everything from mental barriers to even the 4 spirits and Rei as bodyguards and defenders for the place. As the apprentice to Teizeki, Naruto's taijutsu is developing nearly as quickly as his kenjutsu. Teizeki chose Naruto to be his successor because he is growing too old and wants his iron skin style, which actually makes up for this name, to be passed down to the younger generation. The clones of Naruto have been putting a lot of effort into learning the fundamentals of Teizeki's style as well as the more complex katas of his mother's and father's styles. Since Naruto will only have 8 styles of taijutsu, he will practice Teizeki's, his mother's, father's, and father's combined, his original 2, and his original combo. Later on, he will begin to create his own style, but it will remain a secret. He will use specific styles for specific battles rather than just one. Naruto has already mastered all 7 D-rank jutsu for the elements, sub-elements, and Inipo, so his ninjutsu is developing as quickly as usual. His goal is to become proficient in all of the C ranks for Earth, Ice, Inipo, and Lightning. He is also practicing the Fire, Water, and Wind B-rank jutsu. He will use the entire year to master all of the jutsus in the clan library, and from his spurts with Rei up to B rank before he begins working on any A rank to be fair. He won't be a complete master of the jutsu, but he will master the A and S rank jutsu until he can use them with a limited number of hand signs. He also knows all of the high-ranked jutsu that he hasn't practiced, and he will use some of the high-ranked jutsu that he hasn't practiced when necessary, such as the Hyouden, Saoryu Buyusetsu, Ice Style, Twin Dragon Blizzard, which is at least high B.low A-ranked jutsu for its chakra consumption. Since he is working on the B-ranked jutsu that were in his clan's library and occasionally lends some genjutsu scrolls to Kurenai Yuhi, Konoha's renowned genjutsu mistress, Naruto's genjutsu is also progressing well. Kurenai and Naruto first crossed paths a few months ago when Asuma and Anko introduced them. I meant to let him give her some scrolls, a training partner, and other things, but no, she is not a person for the harem. Kurenai and Anko have been friends for years, and she is the only person who is aware of Anko's true nature aside from Naruto and the third. Naruto found out that Asuma and Kurenai had been dating for roughly 4 years and congratulated them. Naruto even made fun of them for not having a grandchild or 2 yet, which made them blush a lot and nearly made him laugh that day. With the third's assistance, Naruto is now able to write to Jiraiya about a variety of topics, including seals, jutsu theories and concepts, and even the fact that he has created the elemental Rasengan, which he can throw. To add to that, Jiraiya showed up in Konoha nearly a week later, eager to see the blonde genius. Naruto and Jiraiya have been training and communicating for a whole month since Jiraiya arrived in Konoha on the 3rd month. Since Jiraiya is Naruto's godfather and all, they are considered family. It was an incredible day when they first met. Start of the flashback in the village of Konoha, it was an ordinary day. While the ninja were out and about conducting their training, missions, and other activities, the citizens were going about their daily lives. One blonde ninja in training is working on his 2 masterpieces, Hyouden, Rasengan, Ice Style, Rasengan, and Shunpo no Jutsu. Across the large training field, Naruto's clones were engaged in their regular exercises. At last, Naruto had mastered the fundamentals of his Shunpo no Jutsu and was able to move at least 5 feet before becoming exhausted. He believes that, similar to the Hiroshin, the more chakra he puts into the step, the less it goes. He moves the 5 feet this time, using a lot less chakra, but he isn't particularly exhausted. Since it was still in the experimental stage, Naruto will only use it in combat once he masters the ability to virtually be like his father during the Third Ninja War, when he was able to be in multiple locations simultaneously with the Hiroshin. He forced his ninjas to throw several pronged kunai at the enemy, and minutes after his initial flash at the enemy's location, at least 10 to 15 flashes would occur until all Iware Kumo Nin would be killed in 10 to 20 seconds. Yes, Minato was that strong because, as a true all-around ninja, he is skilled at everything, making him the best Kage to date. Paperwork, the Kage's worst enemy, was being tackled and defeated by the third Hokage and his 3 clones while Naruto was training in the Hokage Tower. Soon as Yondaime Kage is doing the same thing with the Kage Bushin secret, and he is giving thanks to the heavens for Naruto's idea. However, I am veering off course here, so I will return to the Hokage Tower. A man with long white spiky hair in a ponytail down his back hopped through the now open window and landed in front of the desk while the third was too preoccupied with the dreaded paperwork to notice the window opening. This man had on a mesh shirt underneath a gray robe top and a red vest. A demon headband featuring the kanji oil was worn by him, along with a pair of sandals and loose-fitting gray pants. The Toad Sage Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary Sannin, was well known throughout the elemental nations. With his arms crossed, Jiraiya frightened the third, who was unaware of the Toad Sage's approach, by saying, well sensei, it seems that you finally figured out the trick to beating paperwork." Sarutobi inquired, "Ah, Jiraiya, what brings you back to Konoha?" He was aware that if Jiraiya had returned so quickly, it was either to provide information or to spy on him for his popular book series, Make Out Paradise. "I came back for 3 things, sensei." Receiving a nod to keep going. First is that our snake friend joined an organization called Akatsuki, but he left it about a year ago and started making his own village called the Hidden Sound Village. Second is that this organization is made up of about 8.9 members and all of them are at least S rank and their goal is to capture all 9 Biju. Sarutobi's expression changed when he heard that, "Yay, I know what you're thinking, but they won't start capturing the 9 of them for another 6 years and their last target will be the Kyuubi. The last thing I came back for is about these letters I am getting from my godson. He said he knows the Rasengan and can throw it and add his elemental affinities to it, and then his recent one says he can do both together. In short, I rushed back here to give you the information and see what the Gaki can really do." The hermit took a deep breath, was seated next to the third. Jiraiya cut Sarutobi off as he was about to say, "We will make plans for Orochimaru later, seeing as he has no threat to Konoha as of now. Now these Akatsuki people will surely be trouble in the future when they will come after Naruto and Rei." The self-described pervert inquired, "Who's Rei?" Calmly responded, "Rei is the Kyuubi no Kitsune." The third raised his hand to interrupt Jiraiya before he could finish, saying, "What is the seal weakening? Damn it, I need to fix it before." "It is all right, Rei will not do anything, and no, the seal is not weakening. Naruto has everything under control as he and her agree that they are trapped and she won't be able to come out. No need to do anything, and as I was saying before you interrupted me, Naruto and Rei will be targeted, but Naruto right now is even on par with Itachi without the Sharingan when he was an Anbu captain. Naruto is a real genius that works so much he makes guys training look tame." That final sentence made both of them shiver at the thought of the green-clad taijutsu master. They both sensed a chakra signature approaching at that moment, and the third recognized it right away when he saw lightning form from the floor up to a height of around 5 feet 4 inches, then begin to descend again, revealing a boy with neon blonde hair, sparkling blue eyes that were hidden by black sunglasses, and 3 whisker marks on either side of his face. The more lightning strikes, the more the boy's clothes show. "Elemental Fox Flash" was written in kanji on the back of the boy's black trench coat, which had blood-red flames licking the bottom. He was dressed in an open black vest, which was essentially a black Jonin vest. There was a snow-white fox on the boy's shoulder. Under the vest was a tight shirt with forest green skin that showed off his rock hard abs and chest. 2 necklaces, one made of ice and the other made of emerald green on the bottom and sky blue on top, swirled together in the middle of his neck. The most magnificent aspect is that it appears as though the small cycle inside the stone was sustained by chakra. The boy's hands and wrists were covered in blood-red bracers, and he wore black fingerless gloves. He wore loose, fitting black pants with multiple pockets, resembling a trench coat with blood-red flames licking upwards at the bottom. The boy was dressed in combat boots with black armor plating. Wait was written in kanji on each of the boy's arms, followed by seals for black lightning, Minato's katana, rose and glade, Kushina's kodachis, flash, for his Hirishin kunais, knuckle, trench knives, and crimson death, Rei's katana. One ring on his right hand was a gold band with a perfect ruby that was clear through, and the other was a perfect garnet stone. Both rings were on his ring fingers and were likely worth a fortune. Yes, they were. Overall, Jiraiya was reminded of Minato and Kushina together by the boy's clothing. There were no burn marks on the floor when the lightning stopped. The blonde pointed to Jiraiya and said, "Hey Oji-san, how are you doing on the medicine I assigned you? And who is this?" "We all know it's Naruto, of course." Pointing to the pervert sage, the third said, "Ah Naruto-kun, welcome, and I am doing well, thank you for the medicine, I feel better than before. This man is Jiraiya of the Sannin and my former student." The third nodded his head, and Naruto concluded by pointing at Jiraiya, who was beaming with pride from the praise he was receiving. "So this is the man that writes that book series that you read and Kakashi used to read? The Jiraiya that taught my father everything he knew? The toad sage that is my godfather and I have been contacting for a while, talking about seal designs, ideas for seals and jutsus, and also some stories of my parents, that Jiraiya." Then something happened that neither Jiraiya nor the third could have predicted. Naruto appeared in front of Jiraiya and kicked him in the crotch with his hard, without chakra in the kick either, sending the sage flying into the wall while holding his likely crushed sack. Naruto yelled at the fallen man, "That's for peeping on my mother arrow. Sennin. You should be lucky that I'm kicking you and not both my mother and father, because you wouldn't make it past noon if they did." He then turned back to the shocked Sarutobi, who was watching the exchange with a mantra in his head and holding his own crotch for safety. Note to self: never ever piss off Naruto. The toad sage moaned as he got to his feet, rubbing his sore balls and giving the blonde a death glare. However, he paled at the idea of a furious Kushina and Minato pursuing him. All of a sudden, the pain in his mind was far worse than his actual balls. He trembled as though he had leapt from Konoha's warm climate to Snow Country's bitterly cold one. He limped to his feet and returned to his seat, still scowling at the blonde. Jiraiya shouted at Naruto, "What the hell, you gaki?" The blonde said, "Hey, blame my parents. They told me to kick your ass in their scrolls, so I did what my mother personally wanted me to do and nailed you straight in the balls. But anyway, Oji-san, are there any missions for me and Vaughn today?" The elderly man placed his chin on them and his hand in a tent-like manner. The old man, who was looking through some scrolls, said, "Well, there are a couple of D ranks you can do for now, since Kakashi and Yamato are out on a joint mission with Asuma and Kurenai in Rock Country. But right now Jiraiya here came and has some information concerning you and Rei, and also he wants to see you mastery over the Rasengan." Naruto then created a shadow clone for each mission and forced them to work on them, which astounded the sage of the blonde's chakra capacity and knowledge of a B-ranked kinjutsu. The blonde said casually, "All right, I have time because the 4,000 clones at home are working on my training." The sheer number of clones he mentioned nearly made the sage's eyes pop out. "All right, now Jiraiya says that he knows some things about Orochimaru." The temperature of the room dropped sharply as the blonde in front of him snarled aloud at the mention of Snake Sanin's name, but he grudgingly complied with Sarutobi's order to calm down. "Well, as I was saying, he has info on Orochimaru and an organization called Akatsuki. Orochimaru is making his own hidden village, it appears, and was once in the Akatsuki before he left it. Now the Akatsuki are the real problem, as they are a group of at least 8.9 S-class missing nin members. Their goal is to collect all 9 Biju, and so you and Rei will be targeted in the future." The elderly gentleman finished staring at the two in front of him. When the word Hanyu was mentioned, Jiraiya noticed that the blonde's right and left hands had sharp claws and that his right arm appeared more muscular than his left. "Well, Orochimaru won't be much of a problem for Konoha unless he can recruit some high-level missing nin to his village. I agree that Akatsuki will be a problem in the future. What do you mean, Hanyu Gaki? Inquired Jiraiya inquisitively. Jiraiya, who was aware of the effects of the seal on Naruto's stomach and how Minato had somewhat changed it, nodded in understanding as Naruto concluded, as the word means I will be turning into a half demon due to the large amounts of demon chakra going into my coils thanks to the seal. Ray says that once it's my 10th birthday then I will have to go through a ritual of sorts and my body will change to the body of a half demon. Naruto bowed to the elderly man and asked Jiraiya to follow him as they both shunshined off to an empty training field. Jiraiya said, well, with that out of the way, I would like to see how far of Master you are at the Rasengan Gaki. In the field both of them landed at the Memorial Stone Field, which, if you recall, was Team 7's training field in the show. There was a lake close by, and the field was encircled by forest. A single tree stood in the center of the clearing, and on one side of it was a memorial stone made of obsidian, a black, hard mineral, with the names of all the valiant nin who perished in the Kyuubi attack and the Third War engraved on its base. Jiraiya stood there and said, okay, Gaki, show me what you know about the Rasengan. Naruto nodded and extended his hand, causing a typical Rasengan to materialize at once. He then created roughly 13 clones. Several trees were cut down when one clone created the Rasen Shuriken and threw it, while 6 clones in pairs of 2 created the Fuden, Rasen Shuriken, Kaden, Rasen Shuriken, and Suiden. Rasen Shuriken and threw them in the same direction as the first clone threw his. The Suiden version was the last to prevent a forest fire from starting. The damage first caught Jiraiya's attention, but when he saw what the other 6 clones were producing, his mouth fell open. Before the jutsu were unleashed, causing complete destruction, he saw Senpu Rasengan, Whirlwind Rasengan. I thought I'd change its name to something better, Wind Style Rasengan, Taiyo Rasengan, and Suika Rasengan. You should refer to the previous chapter for their names. The clones disengaged them and they vanished. It would be an understatement of the year to say that Jiraiya was shocked when an 8-year-old boy learned an A-ranked jutsu that took him a year to master and 3 years for its creator, Minato Namikaze, his first pupil. The boy then completely enhances the jutsu to both S and SS. Ranked standards for assassination, yes. Minato used the Rasengan as an assassination jutsu, and Kakashi created the Lightning Blade, a powered version of the Rasengan, and Chidori, thanks to the Rasengan. This boy claimed that in just 1 month, he had mastered the Rasengan. Senpo Udama Rasengan, Hermit Art, Big Ball Spiral Sphere, is the only variation he offers. The perverted sage praised and then inquired, Dang Gaki, you sure are a master of your father's technique, but I got to ask, are you working on any other variants and also your father's Hiroshin? Thank you, and to the first question, yes, I am working on a Hyouden Rasengan variant. Naruto then slid his hand along the seal with the kanji for flash. A tri-pronged kunai emerged, which he threw behind Jiraiya before reappearing behind the man in a yellow flash. And that should answer your second question, but before you ask, no, I am not a master at it yet, but I am working on it and also am creating a variant that if created and mastered would allow me to use the Hiroshin for long distances instead, like say I need to get to a certain place in a flash. Pun intended. The blonde concluded by sealing the kunai back in the seal. And that's saying something since it's an S-ranked jutsu for being a human summon, Jiraiya thought. Hyouden. As in ice style. How are you able to manipulate ice? Oh wait, now I remember the Soshigen from your mother. And also, what is the name of this jutsu you were trying to make that is pretty much even better than the Hiroshin was? Naruto closed his eyes and then opened them to reveal the second level of the Soshigen he had attained the previous year. Yeah, I have the Soshigen and Fukyu Hirameki from my parents, as you can see from the use of Hiroshin and looking into my eyes now. Similar to the first level, the white portion of his eye had turned blood red and was surrounded by various kanji representing the elements. In contrast to the first level, the blood red portion of the Soshigen is the kanji for ice, wood, sand, magma, and storm. It's the combination of wind, water, and lightning. His iris was topaz brown now, with white fire. It was regular red fire for level 1. Licking the bottom of his iris, black lightning, level 1 had yellow. Sparking out around the top, even more raindrops in the middle, cracked rock being the object under the fire. and a thicker ring of wind around his pupil. The system for the levels is regular color for level 1, white, fire and lightning. More of water, thicker, wind, or cracked, earth, for level 2. They all occupy 5 spots around the iris in a hexagonal formation, but the 6th spot was left empty, reserved for the final sub element. And no, I am not adding in things like light, dark, time, space, solar, and stuff like that because darkness is Nara's clan style and also used by Nibi and Yugito, and the others are just bullshit. Then, for level 3, there is black, fire and lightning, waterfall, water, crevice, where the earth portion of the iris creates a crevice in it, and thicker with cuts through the ring, wind, and when or if Naruto obtains the state, the final state will be created. And the jutsu I am making that is better than Hirishin is called Shunpo no Jutsu, Naruto said. The sage questioned, Flash step, eh? You get far in it yet? At the end, Naruto chirped, making the sage laugh. Not very far, I am up to 10 feet before it wears me out, so I need to work on it for however long it takes me to master it, and then I truly will become the elemental fox Flash. Well, that will be good goal for you, Naruto. Say, how would you like to be my apprentice? The only other one I had was your father, and look how he turned out, Jiraiya replied. The last person to call him that was Minato himself before he left to fight the Kyuubi 8 years ago, so Jiraiya was smirking when Naruto snapped out of his daze and nodded, saying, of course Jiraiya-san, or should I be saying Jiraiya Sensei now? Naruto stopped the sage with a hand. Well, Gaki first, I am going to let you sign the Toad contract. Jiraiya Sensei, I am already the master and owner of the Fox contract thanks to Rei. And if I know anything, it is not possible for a single person to be a summoner for 2 clans. Unless I am missing something, of course, Naruto replied. Then the sage bit his thumb for some blood and performed the seals for Kachiyose no Jutsu. Then the 2 of them were on top of a giant toad that was probably 40 stories tall, wearing a Yakuza style jacket and a Tonto dagger the size of nearly the Hokage mountain. Well, you do have a point then, but I believe there is a law that states that if the boss summon for both summon clans agree to sharing the summoner, then it may work. We can try now. Similar to Kakashi's left eye, the toad has a vertical scar over its right eye and a cigar in its mouth. The toad started talking when it looked around and then up at its head. The toad boss screamed, Jiraiya, what is the meaning of this? What am I doing here, and who is that Gaki standing next to you? Before asking. Sorry about the summon there, Gamabunta, but I would like to ask a question if you don't mind. And the boy here should be easy to recognize since he looks just like his father Minato. Jiraiya was patting Naruto's shoulder. You mean this kid is Minato and Kushina's son? What's your name, kid? Replied Gamabunta. Naruto says, the name is Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze, Gamabunta. Sama. He then respectfully bows to the toad boss, who smiles back at him. My respectful kid, you are Naruto. Bunta exhaled smoke. Well, being that you are a boss summon, it gives you a right to be respected, and also thanks to the multiple hours of pounding it into my head by Rei Chan helped, replied Naruto. The toad boss commended Rei, saying, well, whoever this Rei person is, then she is a good teacher. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously and said, well, about that Gamabunta. Sama, you should know that Rei is actually the real name for Kyuubi that is inside me. Gamabunta angrily touched his scar and said, ah yes, Kyuubi, how is that blasted kitsune doing over for the last 8 years? Naruto snarled and let out a lot of ki while 2 people were shocked by the names. Well, she's doing okay because she is totally innocent about the incident 8 years ago, especially when that damned snake Orochimaru and that bastard Madara Uchiha put her under a genjutsu after failing to order her to attack Konoha. Wait, you mean it was all thanks to Orochimaru and one of the founders of Konoha who should be dead caused the attack on Konoha? Jiraiya inquired. Well, Orochimaru I can get since he hates the leaf, but Madara Uchiha should have been dead, but from what Kyuubi told the Summon Realm about him, then he technically is immortal and can never die of old age, so it might be possible. Bunta replied. That's what Rei Chan said to me when I asked her how he could be alive, and her answer was that he has the complete Mangekyo Sharingan and now calls it something like the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan or something like that. Naruto concurred. Well, with that out of the way, I was meaning to ask, Bunta, is there any way for a person to have more than one summoning contract to their name? because I was going to give Naruto here the Toad contract, but he already has the Fox contract, which made up think and then call you up for an answer, but if you do not know, then I will call up Pa and Ma to see they can answer." Jiraiya turned to his longtime companion. The two on his head nodded as the Toad recalled, "So you're the summoner for the Kitsune clan, eh boy?" "Well, from what I remember from the summoning archives, there is a rule about having the boss summons meet and agree to let the summoner have both contracts." The sage then calls forth another Toad, about a foot tall, with white eyebrows, a beard, and a small ponytail. "Alright, but I want to make sure, so I will summon Pa, because you never know, and Pa is more up to date with the current laws and rules than all the other Toads." The Toad is standing on its hind legs and wearing a black cloak. "What the? Oh Jiraiya-kun, what is the reason for you to summon me? I am a busy Toad after all," Pa replied. "Yes, well Pa, I was wondering about if there was a rule against having two summoning contracts to a single summoner, and from what Bunta here says that the boss summons have to meet and agree to the single person owning both contracts." Jiraiya asked the Toad that was standing on his shoulder. "Well, there isn't any other rule than the one that Gamabunta-kun said, but might I ask why the sudden interest, Jiraiya-kun?" replied the older Toad. The explanation from Jiraiya caused Pa to nod in agreement before turning to face Naruto and glancing up and down at him. "This boy right here is the son of the past summoner, Minato Namikaze, and is also the current container for the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and also the Kyuubi allowed him to be the Fox summoner. But I was wondering if he could be both the Toad and Fox summoner so I can teach him some of the Toad sage arts, being that he is my new apprentice." Gamabunta and Jiraiya both coughed and choked a little when Pa said, well, you certainly have grown since the last time we met, Naruto-kun, and I will be glad to see the child of prophecy as the next Toad summoner." Jiraiya was confused and then shocked when Pa nodded. "Wait, he is the child that the elder Toad prophesied about? The same prophecy where the child will be the one to choose between saving the world or ending the world?" Jiraiya asked. "The prophecy said that a child that is your student shall be it, so with him being your last student he has to be the one," Pa replied. Getting two Toads and the sage to laugh, the blonde child said, "Well, this day keeps getting more and more interesting, eh Jiraiya? Sensei? Well, I might as well summon Heigen Sama, and so we all can go home to our loved ones and stuff." Naruto then leaps off Gamabunta and performs the seals for Kachiyose no Jutsu, and Heigen emerges in his eight-tailed glory, and when he looks up at his head, he sees the blonde standing there grinning at the Fox boss. Heigen said, "What is it, Naruto? Sama? My family and I were in a meeting right now, so I need to get back soon." Naruto nodded. The Fox giant nodded his head and turned to face his longtime friend as Naruto swiftly explained, "The reason I have summoned you, Heigen Sama, is that you and Gamabunta Sama here need to agree for me to be the Fox and Toad summoner." "Well, Bunta-san, it's been a while since we have seen each other, and for this time to be so that we agree for Naruto Sama being the summoner for both of our clans, no less. I am bound to the request of my older sister having Naruto as the summoner, so I agree." Heigen spoke with an authoritative tone. In a similar tone, Bunta replied, "It's been a long time, Heigen-san. Given that the child is the same child of prophecy that our elder Toad prophesied, I also agree to him being the summoner. Where the hell is the judge and the court, two lawyers? Alright, now I have a family meeting to attend and then an evening with my beautiful wife," Heigen replied. Naruto laughed as he leapt off the head of the now red-faced fox that rose in smoke, saying, "Tell Furosuto Chan, Frost Chan, that me and Ray Chan say hello and are awaiting for more children from you too." After Gamabunta and Pa had left, Naruto landed on the ground. The blonde told him to be prepared to be brought back for a practice test before Bunta left, and the Toad boss nodded. Now that Jiraiya is worried, she calls forth a Toad, and the Toad extends its tongue, holding the Toad summoning contract. Naruto unravels the scroll, signs the contract, and then the Toad swallows the scroll once more before ascending in a cloud of smoke. Jiraiya said, "All right, Naruto, when you want to summon Gamabunta, just say the summon, but after it says the name of the Fox Toad you want." Naruto nodded, made the hand signs, and yelled out Kachiyose no Jutsu. Gamabunta. Gamabunta then materializes in a large plume of smoke. Naruto then makes the signs once more and calls up Soduko, then smirking at having both the Fox and Toad contracts activated. After Bunta and Sudoku departed in a cloud of smoke, only the two remained. Jiraiya crossed his arms and said, "Okay, Naruto, I want you to go rest up, then tomorrow we will start your training." Before departing via Hyouden, Naruto chirped, "Okay, Jiraiya. Sensei CYA tomorrow. Shunshin." The end of the flashback. Jiraiya and Naruto have been training together for the entire month since that day. Naruto is currently working on fire after successfully completing his training in wind manipulation with Jiraiya's assistance. Additionally, because Earth is Jiraiya's primary element, Naruto has been studying several Doden jutsus, such as Daku Senku, underground submarine voyage, Yomi Numa, swamp of the underworld, Domu, earth spear, Doro Gashi, mud overturn, Doryu Dango, earth dumpling mausoleum, Doryuden, earth dragon projectile, Doryu Heki, earth-style wall, and Doryu Taiga, earth flow river. Because it will require an insane amount of control to stand, walk, and run on the swamp, Jiraiya even used his Yomi Numa for Naruto to significantly increase his chakra control. With Teizeki and Jiraiya's assistance, Naruto is honing his Doden manipulation skills while also perfecting his Kaden manipulation. The first week after signing the Toad Scroll, Naruto met Gamakichi and Gamatatsu, and the three would never be seen apart from Vaughn. Vaughn would be on Naruto's head, Kichi on his right shoulder, and Tatsu on his left shoulder if you were to spot him anywhere. Jiraiya was considering when to begin sage training with Naruto, but he concluded that he would be at the ideal age and strength once he transformed into a Hanyu. Konoha is having a lovely day today, and the town is thriving. However, we are currently examining a particular street in the dining area. Given that it was a Saturday and there was no academy today, we saw a couple holding hands as they made their way to Ichiraku Ramen, a unique little stand close to the gate. The girl was his girlfriend, teammate Haku Momochi, and the boy was our blonde boy Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze. Let's see what these two lovers are discussing, shall we? "Hey Haku. Chan, how has being a nurse at the hospital working out?" Naruto inquired. "It's been a bit boring since the only things that happen are some minor injuries or just chakra exhaustion. And with the help of your Phoenix elixir for all the major to extreme cases, the hospital is doing quite well. I still want to know how that potion is made, Naruto-kun." Haku begged, to which Naruto sighed and head. The blonde replied, receiving a nod in return, and then a kiss on the lips, to which he returns the kiss as they head to Ichiraku for dinner. Haku. "Chan, if anyone were to know that I am the maker of that potion and what goes into it, then I would be outcast even more. But if you promise to keep it a secret, I will tell you when we get to our spot later, alright?" On the platform, when Naruto yelled, "Hey old man, an order of miso ramen please," the proprietor turned to face the blonde boy, grinned, and nodded. Telling the young woman, "Alright Naruto, and how about you Haku, Chan, Tuchi?" The elderly man nodded and left after Haku's, "Vegetable ramen please," response. Ayame then emerged and grinned at the stand's favorite customer and his date. As her father prepared the order, Ayame leaned onto the counter and said, "Hello Naruto-kun and Haku. Chan, how have you two been?" Haku blushed and smiled when the blonde said, "Well Ayame. Chan, for me it's training and loving this lovely girl here." However, the sly gleam in Ayame's eyes unnerved them both. When Ayame stated that her father had already given the couple the ramen, Naruto began choking on some of it while Haku coughed. Both of them red as tomatoes. "Is that so? Then in the future you two will be seeing more of each other, eh?" Ayame. "Chan." Naruto whimpered in shame, blushing more at the thoughts, but he shook his head to dismiss them. Haku, however, was unable to do so and did the only thing you could do when your mind was overloaded. Faint. When the blonde caught his girlfriend, Naruto and Ayame yelled, "Haku! Chan!" and gave the brunette a small glare for the remark that started it all. The brunette looked down in guilt for a moment, but she immediately looked up when she saw how Naruto was holding Haku and smiled mischievously, which terrified Naruto to no end. Ayame teased, My Naruto-kun, I didn't know you were that far already." Naruto glanced at how he was holding Haku, blushed, and turned away when he saw that her kimono had opened slightly from the fall, revealing her assets, which were covered in the customary bandages. Tuchi and Ayame were laughing and giggling at Naruto's misfortune during this time. When Naruto sat back down with Haku in his lap leaning up against him still unconscious, he pouted and blushed, saying, "Yay yay Ayame. Chan, but please no more, I don't think Haku Chan could take it." This caused the father and daughter to smile at the couple. With the brunette asking again, "Alright Naruto-kun, I'll stop. But anyway, how was your day so far?" Naruto spent the rest of his time at the stand holding Haku in his lap and discussing their day with Ayame and Tuchi. About half an hour later, Haku awoke to Naruto kissing her on the lips, which she gladly returned. After finishing their meal and chatting with the proprietor and daughter, they departed to their own special location. On the mountain of Hokage here, the couple is seated against a tree that was perched atop Minato's head, that is, the mountain's head. With his arms encircling her waist and holding her in a somewhat tight grip, Haku was lying up against Naruto while seated on his lap. Haku's head was leaning into Naruto's shoulder, which was resting his own. The couple was observing the stunning sunset, which was always breathtaking from this vantage point. The sky's combination of red, orange, blue, and yellow made it one of Konoha's primary tourist destinations, which only a select few, Naruto and Haku, were truly aware of. Haku softly called out, "Naruto-kun," and the blonde boy held her gaze. The blonde replied, "Yes, Haku Chan." The young girl said, "Aren't you going to tell me the secret to the Phoenix Elixir?" Haku's eyes widened as he looked at Naruto in disbelief after Naruto sighed and said, "The Phoenix Down potion is made up of only 3 items. My blood and chakra mixed together with a special sealing ingredient that makes the chakra and blood unnoticed and makes the blood turn into O so anybody can use it." Haku begged, "What do you mean Naruto-kun? You can't seriously mean that, and from what I heard you made about a box of that stuff, so please tell me it's not the truth." Her beloved was essentially investing his life, blood, and energy in the well-known miracle cure that had been applied to every significant wound that had been admitted to the hospital during the previous year. "Yes, it's true Haku Chan, cause thanks to Ray Chan my blood is pure immunity to any poison except one made especially to my chakra and blood cell," Naruto said with a soft, low voice. The young girl retorted, "But why Naruto-kun, why use your blood?" "Because I made an oath to protect this village just like my mother and father did before me, and that means that with all those injured ninja that live to defend this village and follow Oji-san with loyalty are who I also need to protect and help, and if that means the use of my own blood, then that is how it will be, cause until I am old enough that is as much as I can do," Naruto said softly with a tear streaming down onto his cheek. Haku was taken aback by the explanation and felt guilty for yelling at her lover. She turned to face him on his lap, wiped away the tear, and held Naruto close. A few minutes later, the two shared a passionate kiss. The third, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Kurenai, Asuma, Yamato, Anko, Rin, Teizeki, Zabuza, Ashika Moritoa, and Kalaka Moritoa were a short distance away from the couple. When they learned the ingredients of the well-known Phoenix Elixir, they were all taken aback. None of them anticipated that Naruto would genuinely be prepared to risk his life in such a way in order to serve the village more effectively. Then they all awoke from their stupors and went away. Because of the blonde boy's sacrifice for the village's future, they all had a greater regard for him. The couple returned to the compound and went to bed after spending an additional hour watching the sunset. After a month, 1 month has passed since Naruto disclosed the Phoenix Elixir's ingredients, and it would be an understatement to say that the entire hospital staff was taken aback when they discovered who and what made the elixir. They initially intended to stop using it since it was tainted by the demon, but they have since realized that without the elixir, a growing number of ninja will perish from wounds, poisons, and illnesses, so they continue to use it only in the most dire circumstances. Following that day, Naruto and Haku have never been closer. Naruto also made a special clone for Ray to venture out and experience the world. Additionally, Naruto, Haku, and Ray became a three-way couple. Ray's soul was used in the clone, which was essentially created from her chakra. Naruto made significant progress in both his Kaden and Doden manipulation training during that month. The blonde is currently learning how to start manipulating iron, which is almost equivalent to mastering earth, and how to make fire out of nothing but his chakra, which makes Kaden the master of fire. Naruto keeps improving his wind manipulation skills until he is nearly as strong as Ares and is practically one with the wind, while the main manipulation training is going on with those two. To further strengthen his control over his chakra and to further relax his body and mind, Naruto even began to meditate. Sitting on a tree, on water, above a number of senbon and kunai that were erect, and on top of the swamp, Naruto also began to incorporate meditation. Naruto is now even more composed and reserved as a result of meditation. To gain a better understanding of his three primary affinities, Ray instructed Naruto to push each one through his chakra points while in chakra form. With Suiten chakra, it's as if he is one with the water all around him, just as he is one with the wind when he pushes the Fuden chakra through himself. When Naruto expels Fuden chakra throughout his body, there is always a soothing wind that calms everyone. When he concentrates on Kaden, the temperature rises all around him until it feels like he is on fire, but he is unaffected. According to Ray, Naruto has a greater chance of being infused with the elemental spirits of wind, water, fire, and ice the more he works on the other two elements, lightning and earth. The second, hidden Mitsurugi Ryu technique, the Do Ryu Sen, ground dragon flash, was mastered by Naruto. The third technique, Ryu Su Sen, dragon double flash, which entails multiple slashes to the opponent without allowing the opponent to counterattack, was what Naruto was considering beginning to practice. Although it works well for dealing with opponents who won't be knocked out by a single move, Naruto decided against it because he needed to speed up and master the first two moves so that he could perform them with ease. In the middle of the night tonight, a few individuals were in the Hokage's office formulating a strategy to eliminate the Uchiha clan, a formidable foe. The Hokage had Itachi and his cousin Shisui keep an eye on their clan to see if things were getting worse. Now that they knew the clan was planning to start a revolt and start a civil war in the village, the Hokage would not tolerate it. Here we have the third, Udatain Kaharu, Mitokado Homura, as well as Jiraiya, Itachi Uchiha, Danzo, and the third's former teammates. They are debating the most effective strategy for getting rid of the Uchiha clan. The third said, "We only have one course of action, my friends, and that is clan genocide." Everyone nodded. "Alright Itachi, you are going to kill everybody from the clan and then leave Konoha to become a missing nin. But make sure to keep tabs with Jiraiya-san and his spy network." Homura responded with a nod. With the third nodding in agreement, Itachi said, "As you wish, but may I have a request? I wish to keep both my mother and my little brother alive. My mother and I are the only Uchihas that are loyal to Konoha, and I am sure Sasuke-kun would be as well. And if I were to let my mother live, then Sasuke can have someone there for him so he doesn't go insane with power to get revenge with killing me. I see your point Itachi-kun, and I will allow it. You will start your mission tomorrow while Sasuke is at school. I will write up the mission scroll after this meeting is adjourned," the Thrid replied. Following the meeting, Itachi went to Nordo Uzumaki Namikaze, the only other person he could trust to give Sasuke the scroll outlining his actions in killing the clan. This is because Sasuke and Naruto are best friends, and the blonde boy would be the ideal person to support Sasuke during the period following the incident involving his mother. Itachi went straight to find Naruto as soon as he arrived at the Namikaze compound. He was in the security system, so he was inside. The young genius was asleep in his bed when the Anbu captain eventually discovered him, so he went to shake him awake. Naruto rubbed his eyes and yawned. Oh Itachi. Nissan, what is it you need at this late hour? Naruto-kun, it's as we have feared. My clan is planning to cause a revolt, so I am supposed to take a mission to kill all but my mother and Sasuke-kun. So I was wondering if you could do two things for me. Itachi murmured, and Naruto was finally fully awake. After whispering back, "Sure, what do you need Itachi?" "Nissan." Naruto received a scroll from Itachi. "First is that after I kill the clan and am placed as a missing nin, I want you to give that scroll to Sasuke-kun and my mother, as it explains everything. Second, I was wondering if you would bring both my mother and Sasuke-kun into your clan so they won't be forced to be breeding stocks by the damn council," Itachi concluded. Itachi gave Naruto a hug in return, and Naruto said, "Okay, Itachi. Nissan, I'll do what you ask, and I hope you will be alright out there." As he leapt out the window and hopped back to the compound to prepare for the mission of his life, the boy with the raven hair said, "Don't worry Naruto-kun. I will be fine out there, and remember to keep your promise and keep them safe because they truly are the only things I have left." After placing the scroll on the bedside nightstand, Naruto went back to sleep. No matter what, he would never disappoint the older brother of his best friend. The following day passed slowly because it was time when 3 p.m. rolled around. Itachi went to begin his mission after obtaining his mission scroll. Now that class was out, Sasuke was walking home while Itachi began the genocide against the Uchiha clan. Being able to spend the day with his best friend Naruto made Sasuke happy. When Sasuke was almost home, he thought his aunt, Uchiha Yoruchi, and uncle, Uchiha Tiaki, would be waiting for him at the gate. However, he became concerned when he noticed they weren't. As he began to run, he saw something that made him cry uncontrollably as he turned the corner at the gate to the Uchiha compound. Blood and the bodies of his family, the Uchiha family, were everywhere. Thinking the worst, he began running to his home, the main clan house, as soon as he saw his aunt and uncle dead next to each other. He heard his father scream when he got there and immediately ran to the location. Sasuke saw the one thing he never expected to see when he opened the slide door to his parents' bedroom. He noticed Itachi, his older brother, standing over his father's lifeless body, bloody and brandished with his ninjutsu. Sasuke discovered his mother lying on the bed, unconscious but unharmed. Sasuke yelled, "Itachi! Nissan why?" which caused the older Uchiha to gaze at him with emotionless Sharingan eyes and a face covered in blood. Itachi said in a monotone, "I did it for my own reason." Then he came up behind Sasuke and knocked him unconscious. Then, before the Anbu could arrive, the older brother picked up Sasuke, his mother, and Makoto and vanished. In the Namikaze compound in the Namikaze main house's living room, where Naruto is meditating on the floor in the center of the space, Itachi made an appearance via Shunshin. Naruto opened his eyes to see Itachi carrying Sasuke and his mother out cold as he sensed Itachi's approach. After Naruto led Itachi to a guest room with 2 beds, Itachi placed Sasuke and his mother on them. Itachi hurriedly handed Naruto the large scroll and said, "I thank you for your help, Naruto-kun. Also, here is another scroll with everything that was important from the Uchiha compound that is now theirs. Tell them to open it when they are both aware of the mission." "Okay." The blonde nodded in understanding. "Be careful, Itachi. Nissan and I will make sure they get it after they wake up," replied Naruto. "Arigato Naruto-kun cya." Then, without anyone noticing, Itachi fled the village at full speed. The following day, the entire village was aflutter with the news that Itachi, the Uchiha prodigy, had wiped out his clan. Additionally, after the village learned that 2 people had survived the massacre, the council demanded to know where the remaining survivors were, but only Naruto, Jiraiya, and the third knew for sure. Naruto signed the documents allowing Makoto and Sasuke Uchiha to join the Namikaze family when he went to the third that morning. The council tried everything to circumvent the papers after the third informed them that they couldn't stop it once they were completely through, but they stopped talking when Naruto entered the council room. The council room's shouting and demands against the third over the final Uchihas filled the council room. The third ordered the Anbu to bring Naruto in after he whispered to the Hokage that he was waiting as summoned. The head of the Hyuga clan, Hiyashi Hyuga, asked, "What is going on, Hokage?" "Sama," and received nods from everyone. When the door opened, they turned to see Naruto standing there dressed as he had been when he first met Jiraiya. The third said, "Ah, Naruto-kun, thank you for coming, please come over here." Naruto approached and stood beside him. "Hokage. Sama, why is that thing doing here?" Sakura Haruno's mother, Hitomi Haruno, a pink-haired councilwoman, said venomously. The council gasped when the third shot back, "You will hold your tongue, councilwomen, or I will have your head." Naruto smirked and then spoke up. Everyone stared at Naruto as he said, "I am here on orders from Oji-san to announce the newest additions to my clan." Shikaku Nara, the leader of the Nara clan, asked, "And might I ask Uzumaki-san who these new members are and who your clan is?" Shikaku Nara received nods and then perplexed looks from the smirks on Naruto's and the third's faces. The citizen half of the council gasped in surprise and shock when the shinobi half of the council heard the statement, "The name of my clan Nara Sama is the Namikaze clan." "How are you part of that clan when the last remaining member was our Yondaime, Minato Namikaze?" Hitomi yelled. "That is easy because I am his and my mother's, Kushina Uzumaki, only son, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," replied the brunette. "You are not the son of our fourth Hokage," Hitomi yelled once more, and the citizens half shouted back, while the shinobi half remained silent. Then, he filled the room, causing everyone to stop talking and turn to face the source. Naruto, without his glasses, activated the Soshigen, and suddenly a typhoon began to form around the blonde, blowing things around, until the third's hand calmed him down. Naruto yelled, "Now tell me how I have the legendary Soshigen from the Uzumaki clan." Then he made a try. Prong Kanai appeared in his hand and threw it at the pink-haired bitch, cutting her cheek. A yellow flash appeared, and Naruto was behind Hitomi. And there is only one clan that can withstand the effects of space-time jutsu like Hirishin, and that was the Namikaze family, so tell me I am not his son. Naruto yelled, sounding demonic at the end, leaving the citizen half frightened. With a blank expression and his shades back on over his eyes, the blonde returned to the Hokage's side in response to the third's demand that Naruto-kun, that is enough. Inoichi, the Yamanaka clan leader, spoke up after the council resumed its regular activities. With that display out of the way, "Please Naruto-kun, will you inform us of these new members of your clan?" he asked. After giving the man a nod, Naruto said, "The two new members as of this morning are both Makoto Uchiha and Sasuke Uchiha as per request from my Nissan, Itachi Uchiha." The announcement caused half of the population to erupt in outrage before they stopped talking about Naruto's gradual increase in ki. Inoichi inquired, "And what of this request from Itachi-san?" "He asked me to adopt both Makoto and Sasuke into my clan so that the council have to go through me for them to get anything from the two. Since I am the only last and true Namikaze and Uzumaki member, it makes me the clan head, and before any of you think of it, no, I will not force those two, Haku-chan, or myself to be a part of the CRA, Clan Restoration Act. And before you try to say a thing, I already have the third's back, and also with my clan's influence over the village, you won't risk the price." The blonde replied, to which the one-armed hawk rose up in rage. "Boy, you will show respect to this council, and also you will be a part of the CRA." That little retort from the blonde silenced them because he had a point. "No, I will not, and also respect is earned, not forced. Plus, with me being the clan head, it is a clan thing, so no one has a say in the matter except me." "Very well, Naruto-kun. I thank you, and also maybe you should say your ideas about improving the academy and other things," the third responded. "Hi OG-san. Now as OG-san here said, I have some ideas that may improve the welfare of the village and also the performance of our future ninja force." The council was intrigued by this. Sume Inuzuka, the leader of the Inuzuka clan, said, "If you will proceed Naruto-kun," and Naruto nodded. "Now, the academy should involve a 4-year period, instead of 6 years like it is now. The reason is simple. 2 years are mainly focused on Konoha's history and some introductions like chakra notion and chakra molding, with 2 years of basic shinobi skills like taijutsu and weapon practice, following 1 year with E-rank jutsus, and the last one to revise what was learned through the course. Now my idea, it is should be 1 year of history and introduction with the students using the nights to self-study as well, plus the senseis should teach and tell the students the different ninja positions out there, so kids who want to go into a certain field. 1 year with taijutsu, physical exercises and weapon practice, followed by 1 year with chakra control and EC ranked ninjutsus. On the 4th year will be elemental ninjutsu class. I'm sure some of you are looking at me like I grew a second head, but the theory will be explained along the course, and once every 6 months the senseis would check every one of the students in order to see the chakra affinity until the last year comes. Once the senseis found the students' certain affinity, it will be reported, and afterwards, the senseis will divide the classes into each of the affinities, according to their affinity. On weekends, the students should go on some D-rank missions, which basically are the low-level duties to the village. This will be in order to test some teamwork from the students, so at the designated time, the senseis will gather teams of 3 in order to see who works better with who. The reason for this is when the students graduate, each team will be later formed team of genins with junin senseis according to their specialty. With this idea we would have more efficient and prepared shinobi out there and less dead genin. The blonde finished, getting astonished looks from everyone, including the Anbu in hiding and the third Hokage. Everyone's hands went up when the third said, "That is an amazing idea, Naruto-kun. Now, who is in favor of starting this idea up for the next beginning class?" "Alright, and now about this other idea of yours, Naruto-kun?" The blonde nodded and inhaled deeply. My other idea is that you all assign a head for both the sides of the council so that all the requests go to them and they refer them to OG.san or the next Hokage in line. With the head in place, then OG.san and the next Hokage would have more time working on the needed requests that involve the welfare and future of the village, he concluded. That sounds like a reasonable idea, Naruto.kun. Do you have any thoughts on who should be the heads, Naruto.kun? The third responded. The blonde suggests getting nods everywhere because everyone is aware of Hideki's previous achievements. Well, for the citizen side, I suggest your old friend, Masahiro Hideki. He has been a great help to me and also being a legend for what he did in the past wars. He is a perfect idea. With a contemplative stance, Sarutobi asked his adopted grandson, now, who do you think should be the head for the shinobi half? I don't know a good person, but maybe you should have Hideki as the head for both sides, then when the next Hokage is chosen you can become the shinobi side's head and also your experience can be of help to the next Hokage. The brunette sighed. Well, I thank you for your ideas, Naruto.kun, and I will inform Hideki.san of your idea, the elderly gentleman replied. Naruto then departed using a katen, Shunshin, saying, by your leave, OG.san. Following Naruto's departure, the council discussed the concepts and how to organize the academy to implement them. The meeting was adjourned after an hour of discussion, and everyone left for their homes. At the main house of Namikaze, Naruto entered the room containing the two Uchihas. Naruto approached Makoto and began gently yelling her name and shaking her to get her to wake up. She began to stir and look around after a minute. Where am I? Makoto yawned and stretched. You're in my guest room, Makoto.san. After Itachi. Nissan brought you and Sasuke here, whispered Naruto. The raven-haired women looked around and asked, why did Itachi.kun bring us here, Naruto.kun, and where is Fugaku.kun at? With a sad expression, the blonde said, about that, Makoto.san. I suggest you wait for Sasuke to wake up, then I have something for you both to read from Itachi involving your clan. The Uchiha woman asked, alright then. Do you happen to have any clothes that I can change into so I can take a shower, Naruto.kun? Naruto gave her the second scroll he had received from Itachi. Naruto left to give the woman some privacy after saying, there are some clothes for you and Sasuke inside. If you need the restroom, it's across the hall. When you and Sasuke are ready and awake, come out back and call me. I will be training. Makoto was sitting on the bed where her youngest son was sleeping after a while, running her fingers through Sasuke's hair. Sasuke's mother replied that they were in Naruto's clan house when he woke up and asked what had happened and where they were. Makoto Uchiha went out back to call Naruto in after telling her son to take a shower. However, she was shocked to see the enormous number of shadow clones training, and she called for the real Naruto when she saw him going about his regular business. The blonde looked up and nodded when Makoto yelled, Naruto.kun. Sasuke.kun is awake and is taking a shower. I believe it's time for you to come and explain. Following the dispelling of every clone, Naruto entered the living room and discovered Makoto and Sasuke waiting for him on the couch. With a sigh, the blonde readied himself for anything. Naruto pulled out the scroll that Itachi had given him that evening and handed it to Makoto to read aloud. All right, the reason why you two were brought here is written in this scroll by Itachi. Nissan, Naruto said. To my mother and my younger brother, if you are reading this, Naruto.kun has fulfilled my request. All of the Uchihas, with the exception of myself and you two, are now deceased, which is why you two are not in the clan home. Now, I'll tell you why they're dead before you start considering retaliation. Shisui and I have been spying on the Uchiha Council for the past month and a half, and we have found that they were plotting a coup against the Hokage. After Shisui and I informed the third, he came up with a plan with Jiraiya, Danzo.san, and his two teammates, Kaharu, Sama and Homura, Sama. The idea was to murder the last remaining Uchiha and turn me into a missing nin. However, they complied with my request that the two of you be kept alive. The SS ranked task of eliminating every member of the clan, aside from you two, was assigned to me. The council won't be able to touch either of you without first going through Naruto.kun if my other favor to him is successful. I sincerely hope you will pardon me for what I had to do and refrain from pursuing a power struggle, Sasuke.kun. When the opportunity arises, I intend to occasionally come see you and mother. I hope you become a strong little brother, and I have to go deliver this message to Naruto.kun now. Sincerely, Uchiha Itachi. PS Naruto.kun also possesses a scroll that contains all of the valuable items from the hidden vault in the Uchiha compound. Both Makoto and Sasuke were taken aback by the information when she had finished reading the scroll. Sasuke nodded when Makoto asked, "Anyo, Naruto.kun, what was the other favor from Itachi.kun that he spoke about?" Naruto grinned at the two in front of him and said, "Well, how about I put it this way? As of this morning, both you, Makoto Uchiha, and you, Sasuke Uchiha, have been adopted into the Namikaze family." Makoto inquired, "What do you mean, Naruto.kun?" "I mean that with you two added to the Namikaze family, then the council cannot do anything to either of you two because of my family's influence over the village, and also they would need to get permission from the clan head." Naruto responded. The woman with the raven hair asked, "Who is the clan head, Naruto.kun?" and was perplexed when Naruto began to laugh. He then handed Makoto another scroll with an odd seal on it, which Makoto recognized right away. "Makoto.san, you're speaking to the clan head," the blonde said smirkingly as the two were shocked. "Since I am the last remaining Namikaze and Uzumaki, I am the clan head for both clans. And also Makoto.san, I have a scroll from my mother and your best friend, Kushina." The woman then bit her thumb and swiped the blood off the seal, saying, "Our special blood seal that we made so we could keep secrets from our husbands." A moment later, the seal vanished, and she opened it and read it aloud. "Dear Miko Chan," Makoto blushed at that. "Naru.kun has discovered who I am and who his father is. If you are reading this, I would appreciate it if you could watch over little Naru.kun while Yoshi Chan is with me, Miko Chan." Makoto informed Naruto that Yoshi Chan was Yoshino Nara's wife and Shikaku Nara's son. "I realize this is an odd request, but I can only trust you two because you have been my closest friends since I arrived in Konoha, and I don't trust anyone else but you two, Tsunade Chan and Sume Chan. I truly want my Naru.kun to live a happy life with those who care about him, so if you could please share my wish with others, that would be greatly appreciated. From your closest pal, Uzumaki Namikaze Kushina." Naruto sat in a chair and stared out the window, saying, "Wow, I didn't know Ka.san would think ahead like that. Well, she was a genius when she came to Konoha all those years ago, and I guess she just knew of what would happen to you and thought ahead like this," Makoto responded. The blonde said, "Well, since it's Saturday and I don't have a lot to do today, perhaps I could go to your clan home and get the things you'll need. Does that sound good to you, Makoto.san?" as she stood and stretched. A shadow clone materialized in an instant after Makoto said, "If you would be so kind as to take us as well. I know it would still be a disaster zone, but there are things that I need to get." Naruto nodded. The two Narutos cleaned up the blood with water jutsus after carrying the two Uchihas to the Uchiha compound. They then gathered all the dead bodies in one location and set them all on fire. Sasuke and Makoto were gathering their belongings from their rooms and other locations while Naruto was tidying up the compound. After an hour or so, with the majority of the compound cleared by an army of 50 Naruto clones, the two Uchihas were carried back to the Namikaze compound by the real Naruto, accompanied by a clone. Upon their arrival, Naruto took the two to one of the houses where they would be residing going forward. The two raven-haired Uchihas then proceeded to their new house to settle in after Naruto gave Makoto the other scroll containing everything Itachi had gathered. After 3 months, the Uchiha massacre, as everyone now refers to it, occurred 3 months ago. Makoto and Sasuke have been contentedly residing in their new house. Naruto and Sasuke have grown closer to one another. Sasuke has significantly improved during the 3 months that Naruto has been training him. After Naruto forced him to take the chakra paper test, Sasuke was allowed to study jutsu from the Namikaze library's Kaden and Raiden sections. He became proficient in both, and his taijutsu skills improved with the scrolls for the advanced katas for the Uchiha clan's taijutsu style. Sasuke activated his Sharingan while on a mission with Team Icefox, and he has been working tirelessly to master the first stage ever since with Naruto and Kakashi's assistance. With Jiraiya and Teizeki's assistance, Naruto has now mastered Doden manipulation, and as Ray mentioned, the Earth Spirit appeared in Naruto's subconscious. Being a white snake, the Spirit of Earth was a sight to behold. His name was Nakondas, and he was a pearl-white viper with 2 horns on top of his head, about 20 feet long. Naruto was shocked to learn that the long snake was actually the cousin of Manda, the current snake boss, when Nakondas introduced himself. Naruto knew he would soon feel a connection to Doden now that he had Nakondas inside of him. Konohamaru's class was supposed to be the first to hear Naruto's proposal for the academy. When Naruto discovered that Wave was wealthy, he grinned at his genuine ability to alter the course of history. As Naruto's popularity grew gradually throughout the elemental nations, he would demonstrate to them all that he would be the Sojoku Kitsune Senku, Elemental Fox Flash. I apologize if I stole the name, but I looked up the Japanese name and found that Sojoku Senku was the Japanese name for Elemental Flash, so I added Kitsune. Naruto currently holds a low B rank in Iwa and a high C rank in the Kumo Bingo book. Fuden Shoheki no Jutsu, Wind Style, Wind Barrier Jutsu. Fuden Keizeya no Jutsu, Fuden Kadu no Jutsu, Wind Style, Vortex Jutsu. Fuden Kiyomu Shippu no Jutsu, Wind Style, Fierce Hurricane Jutsu. Fuden Baisu Kei's no Yeba, Wind Style, Multiple Wind Swords Jutsu. Fuden Gufuakiri no Jutsu, Wind Release. Tornado Cutter Jutsu. Fuden Shippujiten, Wind Release. Hurricane Spin Jutsu. Fuden Arashi no Mai, Wind Release. Tempest Dance Jutsu. And Fuden Kazuryu, Wind Release. Wind Dragon Jutsu are just a few of the new Fuden Jutsu that Naru has been able to develop over the months. After achieving mastery of the Hiroshin no Jutsu, Naruto is still working to reduce the amount of chakra it uses and increase its range so that he can travel almost anywhere in the elemental countries. For their next mission, let's head to the Hokage's office right now with Team Ice Fox and Sasuke and Kakashi in front of the 3rd Hokage. Naruto has accompanied Sasuke on missions to gain experience in the field ever since he began assisting him with his training. The 3rd handed the scroll to Kakashi and said, "All right, you 4 will be going on an escort mission to the Snow Country while defending Miss Fujikaze Yukie while she was filming." As he read the scroll and experienced a flashback to his previous visit to Snow Country, Kakashi questioned, "So where is the client that asked for his Hokage? Sama?" The 3rd responded, "Returning to work, he shall be here shortly." 10 minutes or so later, a man wearing a gray trench coat, glasses, and gray hair and beard came into the office. As he glanced around, he noticed 3 children in front of him and a man standing distantly, his head deep in a book. Behind his desk, he observed the 3rd Hokage puffing on his pipe. Then he gives the 3rd a bow. "Hello Hokage. Sama. My name is Asama Sandayu and I am here to pick up the team of ninja meant to protect my client, Miss Fujikaze Yukie." Sandayu began to stand up. In his Hokage tone, the 3rd said, "Ah yes, thank you for coming, Sandayu.san. The team is right here in front of you. Team Ice Fox, meet your client Sandayu Asama." Sandayu stared in shock at the 3 children before him. As the 3rd and Kakashi palmed their faces, Sandayu yelled, "You can't be serious, Hokage. Sama. I mean, these kids look no older than 10. The girl looks weak, the boy with black hair looks emo, and the boy with blonde hair looks like a squirt." The room fell silent as the ki passed through the roof. The combined ki from Team Ice Fox was so intense that even the 3rd was perspiring. Naruto approached Sandayu, who was on his knees and gasping for air. In the end, Naruto growled out in a sickly sweet demonic voice that made everyone in the room shudder. "You will do well to keep your mouth shut and not insult us. The last time a person did that to me they were scared beyond belief. It's good that I am the one who is talking because Haku-chan would castrate you faster than lightning for what you said about her." With the final line making Sandayu blush a little, Haku said, "Naruto-kun, it's okay, we'll just show him that we are what we are supposed to be, if not better, so no killing the client, even though he deserves it." The blonde immediately assumed the role of leader and said, Hi Haku-chan. So shall we be off and get this mission on a roll then?" The other 3 ninja nodded, and the 3rd remarked, "Damn, Naruto sure is a good leader," as the team departed with their client in tow. Outside the workplace, as the blonde said, "All right Sandayu.san, where are we supposed to go?" Sandayu shouted, "That was Miss Yukie. Hurry and get her and then return to the movie studio please. And those men after her are some of crew for the movie if you didn't know." The man broke off his sentence, "to the movie studio to get started on heading to the land of snow." as a horse galloped past with a woman on it. A few moments later, two men in black armor on horseback followed her. Sandayu accepted Kakashi's suggestion that he will get her back, so let us head to the studio and wait and talk about how we will do this. The other members of Team Icefox, along with Kakashi, followed the man in gray to the studio. Alongside Naruto in an attempt to catch up to the black armored riders, Naruto was leaping from building to building at an uncontrollably high speed. He then hopped down in front of them, forcing them to stop. Naruto said calmly, "You can all head back to the studio while I go get the lady. Don't worry, I am the leader of the ninja that are assigned by Sandayu-san." The men nodded and went back to the studio, but the blonde turned and jumped after the running maiden. 10 minutes or so later, Naruto caught up to Miss Yukie, who was sitting with her knees up to her chest by a pond. She was shocked that she didn't hear the boy approaching at all when Naruto just approached her and sat down next to her. The woman was shocked when Naruto said aloud, facing forward, "It's a pleasure to meet you in person, Yukie-san." She didn't know the boy, but he did. Yukie inquired, "Who are you and how do you know my name?" The blonde's professional tone shocked the women even more, and she scoffed incredulously. "The name is Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze, aka the Kazuryu of the Leaf, at your service. I know your name because as of 15.20 minutes ago I was assigned with my team by Sandayu-san to escort the movie crew to the land of snow and to protect you at all costs." The blonde sighed in response to the woman's hateful statement, as if, "You're too young to be a ninja. I'm not going back to that damn movie studio and I'm not going to the land of snow." Yukie's face went up in complete shock as the blonde said, "Well, first off, I am wanted in 2 of the 5 hidden villages. I have killed hundreds already, and I have been trained by multiple talented ninja for years now. So do not call me too young because the day I first killed I was only 7 years old." He then used Shadow Clone Jutsu to create a clone to ride the horse back to the studio, and he shunshined to the studio with Yukie still in his arms. In the studio it was difficult for him to contain his laughter when he saw Naruto holding Yukie. The female cast and crew members were attacking him and Kakashi in front of him. Sasuke was attacked because of his identity, and Kakashi was attacked because of his appearance and the fact that his mask had fallen. Haku was laughing uncontrollably when she saw Naruto holding Yukie, who had now woken up from her daze. When Yukie heard giggling and a few girls squealing like fangirls, she was still in disbelief over the revelation that Naruto had made about the abrupt change in the scene. When she regained consciousness, she saw that the young, blonde boy she had met at the pond was holding her bridal style. Once she realized where they were, she began to struggle in the boy's grasp, but to her surprise, the boy's hold was as strong as iron. She yelled, "Hey, put me down," but the boy refused to comply until she heard a cough and turned to see a stern looking Sandayu staring at her. The man in gray said sharply, "Miss Yukie-san, you shouldn't run away from your job like that." The girl sneered. The woman in Naruto's arms shot back when he said, "I keep saying I will not go to the land of snow." Then someone coughed again, and she turned to face Kakashi, who gave her a look while lifting her headband to reveal his Sharingan eye. The commas began to spin wildly, and Yukie passed out. Kakashi told the anxious looking Sandayu, "She will be fine because all I did was cause her to go unconscious." With a chorus of highs from the 3 other ninja, Naruto declared in his leader mode, "Let's get moving and hopefully we will reach the docks by tomorrow at noon." The film crew then left for the land of snow. In the meantime, in the land of snow, 3 ninja kneel around a man who is seated in a throne to watch Yukie's debut film. Then the throne holder spoke. The man's voice was rough, and the ninja with the purplish hair and the headband for snow said, "So is this who we have been searching for all these years?" "Yes, Lord Dodo. Her name is Yukie Fujikaze, but she is really Koyuki Kazuhana, your long-lost niece, and she does have the item we have been seeking, and it appears that she is under the guard of Kakashi Hitaki of Konoha." With a chorus of highs from the 3 ninjas, the now named Dodo said, "Very well. I want you 3 to go and pay my dear niece a visit." After a few days after dreaming about her father and herself as a young child, Yukie awakens. Looking around, her still blurred eyes reveal that she is in a wood paneled room with few other objects. When she finally realized where she was, her eyes popped open as she felt the room start to rock. She opened the door leading out of the ship's cabin after running a little, waited for 10 seconds, and then screamed. Yukie began preparing for the film's scenes while Naruto and Haku sat together in the lookout basket and made out after she came to terms with the fact that she was traveling to the land of snow. Down below them, Sasuke and Kakashi are enjoying a pleasant game of shugi using a shugi board that Naruto brought in a scroll. For the next few hours, this was the situation. Following the filming of the scenes, the director decided that a big iceberg in front of the boat would make the ideal backdrop for the following scene. The actors went to set up after the boat touched down on the island and the filming gear was unloaded. An explosion occurred on one of the ledges of the ice mountain just before the scene started. In front of the actors, Kakashi and Team Icefox sprang into action. The director yelled, "What are you doing?" But they were interrupted by a laugh from where the explosion was. When the same purplish-haired snow ninja from earlier said, well, if it isn't Kakashi Hitaki of the Leaf Village. We haven't met in over 15 years. With a growl, Kakashi said, "It has been a long time, Ruga Nader." Kakashi went wide-eyed and stared at Yukie in shock when Ruga said, "Well, we are only here for the girl and the necklace she has. Or as she really is called in the land of Snow Princess Koyuki Kazahana." He then turned when he heard the other two snow nin emerge from beneath the snow. Naruto hurled a Hiroshin Kunai at the big snow nin, then fled in a yellow flash. Von chasing after him. Kakashi. Nissan, you take on that Ruga guy while me and Von take on the big gun over there. Sasuke and Haku, you both go take out the pink-haired girl over there. Remember, be careful and come back alive, he exclaimed. Sasuke shot off to the girl, Haku following, saying, "Well, you heard the man, let's go." After saying, it seems that the boy there is the better leader, a Kakashi-san. Ruga bounded in Kakashi's direction. As he charged Ruga, Kakashi added, "He is the team's leader after all because he is the Leaf Village's second strongest ninja under the Hokage." Every punch and kick that Ruga took was absorbed by something as the two engaged in a struggle, because it felt like he was running into some sort of barrier. Kakashi was unable to comprehend what was happening. It suddenly occurred to him when he saw the odd gadget on Ruga's armor. Charka armor. Kakashi jumped away and shouted in his head. Alongside Naruto in front of the big man, Naruto emerged in the yellow flash and punched him, sending him flying for a while. Then Von arrived, landed next to Naruto, and growled loudly at the man who had started to stand. Mizore rubbed his jaw and remarked, "That was some punch, kid. The name is Fuyaguma Mizore and you." When Mizore heard the name, his eyes widened. The name is Naruto Uzumaki, Namikaze. "The Kazuryu of Konoha," exclaimed Mizore, startled and a little afraid. Naruto then pulled out his dual kodachis and assumed his mother's kenjutsu stance, saying, "I guess my name is heard even from all the way out here." Emerald Glade was in reverse grip on his right side, while Red Rose was out front on his left side in normal grip. Mizore stiffened, then slowly assumed a clumsy brawler's stance. Then, in a blur, Naruto lunged forward and spun a blade at Mizore, who narrowly avoided him. After that, Naruto turned on his left foot and kicked Mizore in the face, sending him flying. He then infused the two blades with chakra, causing them to glow green, Emerald Glade, and Red Rose. Then, yelling, "Jade Firestorm," Naruto sliced the ground after spinning in a full circle. As the name implies, the green portion of the wave turned into green fire and the red portion into red fire. Mizore panicked and pushed chakra into his chakra armor when he saw the fire coming his way. The iceberg shook when the blast went off. A girl's scream echoed around the crater as Naruto began to walk there, and the blonde recognized it right away. "Haku-chan!" Naruto yelled, then dashed in the direction of the yell without turning around, while Mizore slowly stood up, his armor cracked and barely functional. Before the battle between Naruto and Sasuke and Haku, the pink-haired girl standing atop an ice pillar was being chased by Sasuke and Haku. After scoffing at the two children who were running toward her, the woman leapt to the ground and threw her special ice bombs tied to kunai. The bombs immediately leapt out in spike trees of ice as soon as they struck the ground in front of Haku and Sasuke. After avoiding the bombs at the last second, Sasuke made a quick series of hand gestures and then yelled, "Kaden! Bukakyu no Jutsu! Fire style! Great Fireball Jutsu!" before a huge ball of fire erupted from his mouth and headed directly for the woman. Before speaking, The woman glanced at the two and jumped out of the way when she saw the fireball approaching. "Ha, quite a big fireball you shot off. The name is Kakuyoku Fubuki and you?" Fubuki replied. "Haku Momochi," Haku said as he assumed a stance. "Sasuke Uchiha." Sasuke uttered as he assumed the Uchiha Taijutsu position. Fubuki raised an eyebrow and crossed her arms as she remarked, "Oh Uchiha eh? I thought they were all killed off by that one Uchiha." "Enough talk." Sasuke then lunged forward, battling Fubuki closely with Haku at his side. A wave of ice shot towards Sasuke after he punched Fubuki away, and as he jumped away, it caught his leg and he was taken prisoner. She then performed some hand signs and said, "Hyouden, ice prison." Before Fubuki could celebrate, Sasuke transformed into a firepot that was used to warm the ship's chilly passengers. The pot then exploded, sending a cable flying out of it and catching Fubuki on the ice. The fire then traveled to her along the wire. She switched her armor to flight mode before she could be burned, and the wings cut the wire before the fire reached her, causing her to take off. Her face turned slightly pale when she heard the shout, "Hyouden! Sensatsu Suisho! Ice style! Death by 1,000 flying water needles," just when she thought she was safe. Suddenly, 1,000 ice needles flew in all directions toward Fubuki. After that, Fubuki infused her armor with chakra, which shielded her from the needles before they struck. Then she turned, made some hand gestures, and yelled, "Hyouden! Kokuryu Buyusetsu, ice style! Black Dragon Blizzard!" A tiny black dragon sprang out of her hand and hurtled toward Haku, who was hit before she could move and let out a painful scream. After that, Sasuke and Fubuki engaged in a taijutsu duel until the air became dense with lethal ki and heavy throughout the iceberg. Generally, everyone felt the spike of ki and looked at the source, becoming terrified. Naruto was standing over Haku's injured self, but the demon fox cloak with two tails was above him. A deep, monstrous growl escaped Naruto's throat, making everyone shudder, but the snow nin were even worse off because he was their enemy. When Naruto looked at Fubuki, she gasped as Naruto used Kanashibari no Jutsu, temporary body paralysis technique, which is a high concentration of ki through the eyes. The jutsu that Orochimaru used on Sasuke and Sakura in the Forest of Death that caused them to repeatedly see their deaths. When Ruga saw his partner in trouble, he began performing seals, and Kakashi, wearing a headband, imitated them and both of them yelled Hyouden! Itsukaku Hokage, ice style, one-horned white whale. Two enormous whales with horns on top of their heads emerged from the sea, colliding and slamming down onto the iceberg, which began to break apart. Ruga, using the distraction of the two attacks hitting each other, dropped down and picked up Fubuki, and with Mizore, jumped away and vanished. They barely avoided Naruto's two red chakra claws just before they jumped over the mountain of ice. Following the snow nin's departure, Kakashi and Sasuke boarded the ship again and set sail, with Naruto, still in two-tailed form, picking up Haku and Vaughn jumping on his shoulder before turning to face the moving ship. "Hold on Vaughn, this will be fast," Naruto warned, and Vaughn nodded. Then, as he began to run along the water behind him began to shoot out backwards, creating mini tsunamis. When he was about 300 meters from the ship, Naruto leapt and flew through the air, and the blonde landed in a large boom as he hit the water right next to the ship, causing the ship to rock from the waves. He then continued walking up the side of the ship and continued walking to the cabin door, oblivious to the excited cries of the crew as he made his way to the boat. After entering his room, he put Haku down on his bed and began diagnosing her injuries, and with a sigh of relief because she only had 3 broken ribs, he began healing the wounds and the ribs. Following 10 minutes of continuous healing, Naruto pauses, smiles at the serene gesture on Haku's face, yawns, and carelessly gets into bed with her, allowing her to rest her head on his chest as he slips into blissful sleep. Vaughn jumps up on the bed, curls up on his other side, and also falls asleep. As Kakashi was checking on Koyuki, who was sleeping in her bed, while Naruto was healing Haku, he noticed the necklace on her neck and realized it was crucial, so he secretly switched it out for a fake before leaving the room to go to bed with Sasuke right behind him. Sandayu sighed as he stood outside, gazing toward Snow Country, hoping that Dodo wouldn't discover that he was returning the princess to the country, but he did, and he looked up at the slowly darkening sky. "Hopefully we can reclaim our lands and put an end to Dadu's reign of chaos," Sandayu thought. 8 hours have passed since the battle on the iceberg with the snow ninja, and Kakashi and Sasuke have been up and about for an hour, helping the crew with anything that needed help. Now that our blonde hero is beginning to wake up, he slowly opens his eyes and looks up to see the ceiling of his room. With a yawn, the blonde tries to sit up, but he realizes that he is immobile, and when he looks to see the issue, he finds Vaughn on his stomach and Haku's arm wrapped around his chest, her head resting on his shoulder, sleeping soundly with a calm expression on her face. He smiled at the sight, turned his head, and gave the lovely maiden a gentle kiss on the lips to wake her up, waiting to see her love's eyes open. Haku's eyes flitted open when she felt the kiss on her lips, but she closed them when the intense light struck them. She glanced around hazily when she opened them again and saw that she was lying on someone. When she looked around, she saw that the person was Naruto, her blonde lover. She gave him a gentle smile, lifted her head, and gave him a gentle peck on the lips when he smiled at her. She remembered being hit by that Hyouden Kokuryu Buyusetsu from that pink-haired bitch, and then nothing, so she looked around to see where she was. She became aware that she was on the bed in her room with Naruto, and that Vaughn was dozing off on Naruto's stomach. When Naruto began gently scratching his ears, she purred and giggled as the little fox nuzzled into a tiny ball. Naruto gently asked his lover, "Are you feeling better, Haku?" Princess." The woman nodded and flushed at the last part of her name. When he made her feel special, she adored it. As she snuggled deeper into Naruto's body, the brunette said, "Hi Naruto-kun. I feel fine." Naruto laughed softly and put his arm around her to hold her closer, which she appreciated. The blonde blushed at the indication and said, "Well, might I suggest we get up and get you a new pair of clothing since the one you're wearing right now is a little exposing." Following the statement, Haku glanced down at her outfit and squeaked when she saw that her kimono was ripped to pieces, exposing her underwear, and that the bra had cuts that exposed some of her assets. She turned red and attempted to hide under the covers to avoid being seen by onlookers, while Naruto chuckled at her size. Her face still looked like a tomato as she playfully and cutely pouted and hit his shoulder. Haku pouted cutely, making the blonde even more alluring. "That's not funny Naruto-kun." She turned a new shade of red from embarrassment or anger, but he couldn't tell which. Naruto teased, "I'm sorry, Haku." And don't worry, only I got to see you like that and no one else thought it was a nice sight to see." Haku's sultry cooing made Naruto flush and begin to splutter. "Anyo Naruto-kun, can you get me some clothes to change or do I have to do something else for them?" Then, with hesitation, the blonde nodded and sent a clone to fetch his lover's clothes while he kissed her cheek and held her close. Women have unbounded power, and men are enamored with them. Face it, women have an iron grip on the entire world. Naruto then recalled stories about his father, mother, Tsunade, and Ero Sennin, and how the two men were brutally whipped. Literally. All men know this to be true, so there's no reason to doubt it. Naruto hoped and prayed that his loves wouldn't do the same, but his face lost some of its color when he heard Rei say in his mind, "You bet your ass we will." Haku turned tomato once more, and Naruto's mind nearly went blank and he nearly fainted when the clone returned with a new kimono, some bandages, and a pair of white lacy underwear and a bra. She swiftly grabbed the clothes, and in less than a millisecond, Hirushин vanished into the bathroom as if she were using them, shocking Naruto with how fast she moved. 5 minutes later, she emerged wearing her kimono, her face still flushed with shame, which made the blonde laugh and smile. Naruto added, "Looking beautiful as always Haku." Haku blushed and grinned at the praise. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," Haku said quietly as she approached and planted a kiss on our blonde hero's lips, which he graciously returned. Next, the brunette stroked the small ball of fur on Naruto's abdomen. When Vaughn woke up, she laughed and yawned cutely, flashing his tiny fangs. Then, after a cat-like stretch, he leapt up onto Haku's waiting shoulder and wrapped a pearl-white fur scarf around her neck. Then, to Haku's delight, Naruto stood up and stretched his whole body. After that, Naruto completed his morning workout, which consisted of 500 sit-ups and 1 vertical push-up. Following their completion, he quickly showered and changed into his typical clothes, which he wore when he first met Jiraiya in the Hokage's office in the previous chapter. When Naruto thought his body could handle it, he increased the gravity to 3 times. With enough caution, he noticed that his body began to acclimate to the increased weight, particularly when his vest weighed 300 pounds and the 4 bracers, one on each wrist and ankle, weighed 250 pounds. It was safe to assume that he was receiving excellent control training and chakra coil expansion just by walking around because he used his chakra control to prevent his body mass from breaking the wood. This occurs when you keep using your chakra and let its coils expand to manage stress, which further aids in chakra control. Following their thorough preparation and inspection, the two went outside to the deck and noticed the snow country in the distance. Following breakfast, the two began assisting the crew in getting ready for the landing. Haku assisted in preparing the caravan to depart when the ship docked, while Naruto used his demon-enhanced strength to carry some heavy equipment around. Keep in mind that his arms and legs had already begun to transform into half-demon arms, so the muscles were strengthened with demonic chakra. Kakashi and Sasuke were already out and about when Naruto arrived, so they slowed down because they knew that he would use his clones to make everything move 2 or 3 times as quickly. As they had anticipated, a large number of 30 clones appeared, and the caravan and equipment were packed and ready to move out like clockwork. The entire crew decided to play poker with the hours they had free thanks to Naruto's use of shadow clones, but they were unaware that the luckiest person in the world was aboard their ship until it was too late. After spending hours playing poker, primarily 5-card draw, Omaha, Texas Hold'em, and Blackjack, Naruto showed off his godlike luck by kicking everyone's ass, seemingly making up for his bad luck in the first 5 years of his life. Which, believe me, is a very beneficial trade in the gambling industry. Due to his excessive winnings, he has been barred from Konoha's casinos. Naruto consistently outsmarts his age with the proverb, "Old enough to kill, old enough to drink and gamble." As soon as the caravan touched down at the port, it began to depart. As directed by the director, the caravan traveled slowly along the snowy road for almost an hour, occasionally filming scenes for the upcoming film. The caravan and ninja were more and more in awe of Snow Country's splendor as they continued to drive through it. The valleys beneath the road were a veritable winter wonderland, with all the trees resembling Christmas trees due to the snow and ice covering them. The snow-capped mountains were glistening when the sun shone. Haku lost her balance and began to tumble down the cliff, with Naruto following her like a rocket because she was so enthralled with the view. While Haku was falling and screaming, she prepared herself for the pain that would come when she fell over the cliff, but 2 minutes later, it never materialized. When she opened her eyes slowly, she saw her beloved Naruto levitating in midair while holding her bridal style close to his chest and his stunning azure blue eyes. Naruto reassured the heart-pounding brunette in his grasp as she began to sob into his chest. "It's okay, Haku. Nothing will happen to you while I am here." The blonde-haired boy pushed wind chakra around them as she was doing it, pushing upward to return to the caravan at the top of the cliff. Haku sobbed quietly into his shirt as he slowly stroked her back and spoke soothing words. "Oh Naruto-kun. I thought I was going to die. I might be a ninja, but I am still a little aching from the fight. I would have lost you." As soon as the two reached the summit, they saw Sandayu and the princess following closely behind Sasuke, Kakashi, and Van. With a sigh of relief when Naruto nodded, they all let go of the breath they didn't realize they were holding and looked worriedly at Haku to check on her. The others nodded in agreement as Naruto said, "I'll be carrying her for a bit until she can calm down. She told me that she was still hurt from the fight, so it's just in case." After that, Naruto turned Haku onto his back. After finishing that, he nodded to Kakashi to start the caravan, and Kakashi nodded in return before going to inform the director. The caravan continued to move slowly for the remainder of the afternoon in order to film the scenes. When the caravan came to a stop for the night, one of the crew members tasked with obtaining the princess for the final scene ran up to the director, the ninja, and Sandayu, yelling, "She's gone," and cursing the ninja. The others nodded their heads and leapt down the mountainside to look for the fugitive princess. "Okay, I want Naruto and Haku to head east. I will head north, and Sasuke head west. When you find the princess, shoot out a flare so we know to head back." Kakashi gave the order. With Haku and Naruto, the couple was about to leave after searching for about 20 minutes when Naruto's sensitive hearing detected a human moan, so they went to investigate. As if Naruto's good fortune were a blessing, they discover the princess moaning while lying on the ground. After shaking his head, Naruto approached the princess. Minutes earlier, With the princess didn't want to return to the caravan, so she was running without turning around. She was running while experiencing flashbacks to her childhood, when she was a young princess strolling around the Kazahana palace with her father. When she was on a blanket-covered sled with our very own Kakashi Hitaki at the straps, forcing the dogs attached to the sleigh to get the two out of snow as quickly as possible, she had a flashback to the day her uncle rebelled, killed her father, and took over Snow Country. She recalls yelling, "Father!" at the top of her lungs as she saw the palace where she had spent her entire childhood burning like a gigantic fireball. Koyuki's next sensation was her foot catching a root, which caused her to tumble down the hill she was going to run down. When she reached the bottom, she groaned in agony. The princess closes her eyes and passes out because she can no longer bear the pain. She was dreaming while she was asleep about the time she was staring at her reflection in several mirrors while her father was sitting outside, admiring the fascinated expression on his little angel's face. The princess's dreams then took an odd turn when she began to think about Sandayu, the blonde-haired ninja who was assigned to protect her by her manager and one of her father's faithful guards. She can tell the boy is strong and incredibly well built for his age based on everything she has seen of him. When she stares directly into his captivating blue eyes, she feels as though the sky is endless. Since there aren't many people with that type of blonde hair in the world, his golden hair appears extremely rare and exotic. She becomes more aroused the more she thinks about Naruto, and eventually she begins to think perverted thoughts about him with her. However, they abruptly stopped when she felt a hand on her shoulder. Now when she opens her eyes, Naruto, the subject of her current dreams, is standing directly above her. With his enhanced senses, Naruto detects some pheromones that Koyuki is releasing. He then notices how she is staring at him, connects the dots, and blushes a little. He tries to attract the princess on the ground, who blushes when she finally realizes who she was eyeing like a piece of meat, by coughing and blushing more when he notices the faint wet spot close to her area. Softly, Naruto pulls out a red flare and lights it, saying, princess, we need to get you back to the caravan. The others are getting worried." The blonde sighed and shook his head as Koyuki yelled, "I don't want to go back. I never wanted to go to Snow Country in the first place. This place brings up so many good and bad memories that I locked away and wanted to be locked away." His tone implied that there would be no disagreement when he said, "Well, one way or another we are taking you back. End of story." The princess asked, "What do you mean, we?" before quietly saying, "Oh," as she spots Haku's sleeping body on Naruto's back. He creates a clone and gently lifts Haku off the real blonde's back and places her in his arms after saying, "Let me shift things around and we will get going." The clone then picks up Koyuki and places her on Naruto's back, where she moaned and wrapped her arms around his neck to stay upright. Koyuki blushes at the suffix when the blonde says, "All right, let's get going. You better holding on, Koyuki." Hime. Naruto gets up and gives Haku a gentle kiss on his sleeping lips, causing Koyuki to watch in envy. He then returns to the cave entrance where the caravan stopped. During their stroll, Naruto and the princess decided to strike up a conversation about their respective histories. With his hair hanging over his eyes, Naruto's mood immediately shifted to one of depression when it was his turn. Koyuki was astounded by how quickly Naruto's joyful grin vanished, as though he had been practicing it for years, which he has. "The day I was born was the darkest day for Konoha. A force of nature not seen very much and when seen causes devastating natural disasters consisting of tsunamis and earthquakes just by the swing of its tail. This force of nature is called the Kyuubi no Kitsune, or better known as the nine-tailed fox demon queen. She came and attacked Konoha after being tricked and put under a very powerful genjutsu. She attacked anything and everything on the way to Konoha, and when she got to Konoha's wall everyone believed all was lost until my father, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, used a very dangerous sealing jutsu that even though it trapped the fox it also cost his life as well." The blonde then took a breath and continued even though he saw Koyuki's horrified face. "This seal was called Shiki Fuin, and with it the user summons the Shinigami, or death god himself. The death god takes both the soul of the summoner and the target, but since the Kyuubi had too much power my father took one half of its power with him while the other half was sealed into a human child. Human adults couldn't hold the Kyuubi's demon chakra cause their chakra coils wouldn't cope with it and then they would explode and the fox would escape. So my father used a human baby, and that human baby grew up motherless and fatherless all his life. His mother died right after having him cause he was premature. Over the first 5 years of his life he was tortured, beaten, anything imaginable cause the adults couldn't get over their grudge that since they can't hurt the fox herself they target the container. Naruto sadly told his tale and Koyuki was softly screams. When the blonde nodded, the princess's tears grew louder. That baby was you, wasn't it, Naruto-kun? She cried. That was my story for the first 5 years of my life. The remaining years I used to train to the brink of exhaustion to get stronger and become just like my parents and become strong and protect the leaf even if I was tortured like that. Naruto said with conviction and saddened Koyuki. You know, Haku-chan here really has someone special to love. I'm happy for you too. I hope that if we do take Snow back from my uncle that I will be able to support you on your journey to being the greatest. The princess replies with a grin. The blonde replied, thank you, Koyuki. I will make sure that once you get the country back, I will help you rebuild it to its former glory and make it prosper further. It's the same thing I did with Wave Country, and also since me and the current feudal lord of Wave each own half of Gado's shipping company, so we both can set up trade with each other. The princess gave Naruto a wide-eyed look because she had heard about someone who was removing Gado from Wave, but she had only heard that, and now she was assisting her in reclaiming Snow. Koyuki asked incredulously, you're the hero of Wave that everyone was talking about? Naruto laughed at the shocked tone in her voice. Yeah, I am, and I see that my reputation is growing even if I am considered a B-ranked ninja in Kumo's bingo book and an A rank in Iwa's book because of who my father was and also for my powers over most of the elements. The blonde replied nonchalantly as though it were nothing. All she could say was, wow, which caused Naruto to laugh once more. After an hour the three eventually arrived at the cave entrance after an hour of Haku's walking, talking, and sleeping, but they were unable to locate the caravan. With the two beauties in his arms and on his back, Naruto enters the ice cave after making up his mind. It grew darker as they entered, until the only light coming from the entrance was the faint glint of sunlight reflecting off the ice. Naruto's eyesight allowed him to see clearly in the dark as if he had never left the sunlight, even if it were so dark that you couldn't see your hand 2 inches from your face. Naruto felt a chakra spike beneath him at that moment, and when he looked down, he saw that the ice was melting and 2 odd-looking rails that he had never seen before were rising to the surface. His sensitive hearing detected a loud sound coming directly into the cave while he was checking the rails. When a Tron finally arrived, Koyuki informed him that they should leave the area immediately. And the only thing that comes to mind when a woman yells at you like that is running out of that cave. Or just being obedient to her every whim like a good boy, because I'm telling you, women rule the damn world. Koyuki immediately held Haku closer and took off like a bat out of hell after Naruto told him to hold on tight. Naruto continued to listen as the train drew closer and louder as he ran, until he noticed a light at the opposite end of the cave, revealing a massive metal beast that he believed to be the so-called train, but was actually a roaring metal demon. He was skating on the ice and over the air when he suddenly noticed more light coming from the direction he was running. He then began to force wind chakra to coat his feet, which caused him to almost shoot forward with a sonic boom that shook the stalactites, spikes on cave roofs, on the ceiling and fall behind him. The blonde jumped to the side and rolled to make sure the 2 girls were okay when he reached the exit. 10 seconds later, the train blasted out of the cave. The train comes to a complete stop after about 20 railcars have passed. When Naruto rolled, Haku was awakened. There was a fizzling sound at that moment, followed by an unexpected voice. In a rough voice, welcome back to Snow Country, Koyuki. Only Haku and Naruto heard Koyuki's low growl and turned to face her before the voice repeated itself. Dodo. This time, a big man in robes emerges from a hole on top of the second railcar with the 3 snowflakes from the iceberg, causing Naruto to growl a little and activate his Soshigen. Why don't you come on out, Princess Koyuki? Several tree logs were sliding down the hill toward the train and colliding with its side as soon as the 3 of them got to their feet. About 40 to 50 men and Sandayu in samurai armor were shouting a battle cry and charging at the train when everyone looked up to the hill. Dodo simply sneered and pressed a button, which caused the train's sides facing the men to open, revealing numerous Datu's guards operating dozens of launchers of some kind. The men then launched a rain of death composed of shuriken and kunai with a hand signal from Dodo. The charging men halted and attempted to flee, but before 2 cries could be heard, the rain of death was nearly upon them. As Naruto and Haku emerged before the sea of metal, they yelled, "Ice style, ice wall jutsu," and slammed their hands into the ground, creating a massive wall of pure ice that caused all of the shuriken to bounce off it and the kunai to either bounce or stab into it slightly. Then, without missing a beat, Naruto yelled, "Ice style, ice barrage," and began making hand signals. When the blonde slammed his hand into the ice wall, dozens of highly condensed balls and spikes of pure ice shot out the other side at insane speeds, pelting and shattering the train's metal side and killing the guards by stabbing through them. This process continues until the ice wall is completely depleted, but before then, the train begins to move, and as it does, the compartments close as best they can, and Dodo, wearing Snow Nin, returns to the hatch and the train begins to move. Sasuke set off the explosive tags when the train crossed a bridge a little ahead of it from behind a rock. The bridge exploded and collapsed, sending the majority of the train plummeting into a chasm, but the locomotive and the first two compartments disengaged the other cars and took off. Before the rebels began shouting at them for stopping them, Naruto and Haku briefly felt a sense of relief. These are a few of the shouts. For 2 minutes, random men yelled, "Why did you stop us? We were willing to die for our country, but you ninja had to go and stop us. What are we going to do now that Dodo got away?" Naruto had had enough, and a blanket of ki washed over the area, instantly shutting them up in fear and making some piss and or shit themselves. Naruto roared, forcing the rebels to consider his words. After a few minutes, they all agreed that he was correct, and they bowed their heads in shame. "Would you idiots shut the hell up? We stopped you because what you were going to do would have ended your lives. Think about your fucking family's dumbasses, because they would be heartbroken when they learn that you idiots died, and I for one am not going to be the one to tell them how you bakas fucking died for nothing." Just as things were starting to calm down a little, the sound of rotors was heard, and everyone turned to face the cliff to see the main car affixed to some dirigibles, which is another word for blimps. They noticed the obese snow ninja in the back of the car pointing his armored arm at something before his hand suddenly reached out and caught Koyuki, dragging her to the vehicle. Naruto shot like a bullet toward the blimp while everyone was in a panic, landing on the car's railing just after the snow nin entered with Koyuki, who had been knocked unconscious, and sneaked inside without anyone noticing. Once they were back with everyone, a yipping sound finally jolted them out of their daze. Vaughn was holding a tiny note in his mouth when everyone turned to see him. Kakashi approached, removed the note, opened it, and began reading it as soon as he saw Naruto's handwriting. Regarding Kakashi, Nissan, I'll sneak into the car while you're not looking. You guys proceed and prepare to attack the castle where Dodo resides, as we all know. I will have already set up the armories and other weapon caches to detonate on command, so I will attack when I send a clone to get in touch with you. Assure Haku Chan that I'll be fine, and assure Sandayu.san that I'll protect the princess. The blonde hero of all time, Namikaze Naruto Uzumaki. After reading the note, Kakashi simply laughed and tucked it into one of his pockets. When Haku approached and inquired in a concerned manner where Naruto was, he informed her of the contents of the note, and she exhaled with relief. He then gave the order to restart the caravan's movement and began devising a strategy for when the group would attack the castle, while wishing for the safety of Koyuki and Naruto. Alongside Naruto's near perfect stealth skills, developed over hours of infiltrating one of Leaf's most secure buildings, allowed him to enter Koyuki's room without leaving any trace. He immediately regretted entering the room because he turned red in the face and turned around more quickly than lightning. He saw Koyuki, soaked and wearing only a towel with her hair down. She was holding the towel above her assets, and it reached just above her knees. She was a grown woman, so when she wasn't wearing a bra, her assets looked at least C.cup, nearly the same size as Haku's. He discovered this when he happened to walk in on her one day after she had taken a shower and was getting ready. He stammered and apologized profusely when he eventually found his voice. As she changed into her nightgown, Koyuki laughed at his antics. With a sickly sweet voice, Koyuki said, "It's okay, Naruto-kun. I forgive you unless you're a pervert, then I would make you feel like hell." Naruto shuddered and unconsciously covered his area in fear before shaking his head negatively, which caused her to giggle once more. When she told him she was dressed, he turned slowly and let out a sigh of relief as she put on her nightgown completely. "Okay, when we land at the castle I am going to hide out and rig the armories and weapon stashes to weaken the guards. After that I will send for Kakashi and the others to attack and then we can get rid of Dodo for Yuhime. Naruto clarified. Alright, Naruto-kun, Koyuki said as he climbed into bed, and Naruto covered himself with an A-rank genjutsu before moving into a corner to guard the entrances. The following morning Naruto had been up all night, and Dodo was the only one who had opened the door thus far. He had only poked his head in to make sure the princess hadn't slipped out in the middle of the night. Naruto went over and gently and silently shook Koyuki awake when the ship shook, indicating that it had docked. Upon awakening, Koyuki turned her head and grinned upon seeing Naruto's blonde head of hair. Naruto laughed when he saw the princess yawn sweetly. Alright Naruto-kun, I'm up. The blonde then departed using stealth genjutsu after Naruto handed her a try. Krong Kanai and said, well, the car just landed so I'm going to go head out and start the operation so be ready in here. When something really bad is going to happen then drop that and I will be there in a flash, pun intended. Alongside the caravan since the incident, the caravan had been on the move and sought refuge at a nearby village for the night. In order to get as much rest as possible before the battle, the ninja went to bed after making numerous plans for their actions and successfully creating a brilliant plan using the various layouts of the castle. Haku was the first ninja to awaken in the morning, followed by Sasuke. The three went to get breakfast after taking showers and getting dressed. To warm up, they then engaged in some light sparring. Try adjusting to such frigid temperatures after years of living in a hot place like Konoha without freezing your ass off. After that, they began practicing some jutsus that Naruto had made for them, and boy did he enjoy making intricate and challenging jutsu. Rewind Naruto can be seen sitting against a railing on the boat ride to Snow Country, writing in his notebook and mumbling to himself while holding a pencil in the other hand. When a leaf ninja looks at him while he is doing that, it indicates that he is working on developing jutsu, even though most people would find him odd. In addition to being the Grand Master Weaponsmith of the Leaf, the head of Team Fox, and the Kazuryu, Wind Dragon, of Konoha, Naruto has established himself. For himself and his fellow Leaf Shinobi, he has so far developed 20 Wind Jutsu, 10 Fire Jutsu, 15 Water Jutsu, 5 Earth Jutsu, and 8 Ice Jutsu. His other name refers to all the jutsu he has created. Before Kakashi sat next to Naruto and asked him about his most recent creation or creations, you could actually see a dust cloud where he was when he saw him riding away. Kakashi inquired inquisitively, so Naruto, how is the jutsu creating? Make any good jutsu like always? Naruto turned to face his Nissan and was a little alarmed by the ravenous expression in Kakashi's eye. Well, I finally finished at least one jutsu that is a masterpiece and it's my very first lightning jutsu and I'm working on and finishing several more. Want to hear about it, Nissan? Quickly, pleading to hear, Kakashi asked, what is it Naruto? Well anyway the jutsu I created is called Raiden. Kusari no Inazuma, lightning release, chain of lightning. Basically, the jutsu will focus lightning into your hands and fire a single concentrated bolt of lightning at your target. However, once it hits the target, which will probably kill the guy as well, the jutsu will arc over to another target and continue onward. I don't know exactly how many opponents it can hit until it finally dissipates, perhaps as long as you continue pumping chakra into it. The lightning bolt will still be connected to your hand, which might end up being a drawback but I don't see any way around it yet. Also, since it's connected to you, you will be able to control it better than your other jutsu. The jutsu itself will automatically hone in on the nearest chakra source but you have the power to choose your targets before it hits them. I highly suggest that you do not use this on enemies fighting your allies nearby as you may be too distracted to fully control your attack and might end up hitting them instead. Naruto explained. As usual, Kakashi gazed at Naruto's slack jaw for coming up with such a clever trick. Kakashi drooled as he said, Naruto. That's brilliant. I can't believe the sheer complexity and efficiency of the jutsu. To be able to hit multiple targets but only actually aiming for one will not only confuse the targets, but ensure the kill. Naruto was a little uneasy, but he dismissed it as an example of how the jutsu functions and how Kakashi could use it. Well that's one of the jutsu I have been creating while the others are called Doden. Ishi Hogosha no Jutsu, Earth Release, Stone Guardian Technique. Hyeten, Shimo Ukami Nida, Ice Release, Frost Wolfpack. Kaden, Haya Arashi no Jutsu, Fire Release, Fire Arrow Storm Technique. Doden. Ishimamori no Jutsu, Earth Release. Stone Defense Technique, Hyoden. Hai Shimo no Jutsu, Ice Release. Creeping Frost Technique, Hyoden. Surara Danmaku no Jutsu, Ice Release. Icicle Barrage Technique, Futon. Shishi Otakebi, Wind Release. Lion's Roar, Doden. Hyojin Chikara, Earth Release. Titan's Might, Sweden. Akuhei Bakufu no Jutsu, Water Release. Hydra Blast Technique. These jutsus aren't completed yet, but by the end of this mission they should be, and maybe I could create even more. Said, and Kakashi appeared to be to experience a heart attack from all the high jutsu replied. As intrigued as Haku and Sasuke were to hear Naruto discuss the jutsu, Kakashi questioned, what do all of them do, Naruto? First is Doden. Ishi Hogosha no Jutsu, Earth Release. Stone Guardian Technique, Haku said, putting his arms around her and sitting on Naruto's lap. Basically, the jutsu will create a single golem made out of stone that will obey your command, but it has a time limit. With the normal amount of chakra required, the time limit will allow the golem to remain in this world for 1 minute max, but I know a way to lengthen this time without requiring you to constantly pump chakra into the golem. Naruto took a breath and went on, while the audience stared. The second is Hyoden. Shimo Ukami Nida, Ice Release. Frost Wolfpack, a jutsu that summons several wolves made of pure ice. These wolves are essentially summons, but they are made of ice and are incapable of speaking. When these wolves are struck by any lightning jutsu, they transform into conductors, and while their normal attacks only rip like a normal wolf and cause frostbite, the electricity coursing through them causes both frostbite and a powerful shock. The third is Kaden. Haya Arashi no Jutsu, Fire Release. Fire Arrow Storm Technique, which is a C-rank jutsu but can easily rise to B rank if you use enough chakra. This jutsu is similar to Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu, Fire Release. Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique, in that it creates arrows of fire that you shoot out of your mouth. They are quite dangerous, but because of their extremely limited range and the fact that you can only shoot out one at a time, it is more C rank than anything else. The blonde took another breath and went on, Doden. Ishimamori no Jutsu, Earth Release. Stone Defense Technique, is a jutsu that uses rocks and stones and is guided by chakra strings. They would be suspended in the air and would block any jutsu or attacks that came your way. What's even better is that the jutsu required few seals, only 6 in total. Hyoden. Hai Shimo no Jutsu, Ice Release. Creeping Frost Technique, is essentially the ice version of the Hidden Mist Jutsu. The jutsu may be a slow moving attack, but as the mist spreads, it freezes everything it touches. Tiny ice particles fall from the user's mouth wherever the mist touches because the water particles accumulated and froze. Similar to Haku Chan's Thousand Ice Senbon Technique, Hyoden. Surara Danmaku no Jutsu, Ice Release. Icicle Barrage Technique, shoots multiple icicles, each at least 2 feet long, at the target or targets in question. My personal jutsu is Futon. Shishi Otakebi, Wind Release. Lion's Roar. After I finish the hand signs, I take a deep breath and then, after concentrating a lot of wind chakra into my lungs, I release a huge wind powered roar that makes the ground tremble. If I'm good at it, I can essentially turn a mountain into rubble. Now Doden. Hyojin Chikara, Earth Release. Titan's Might, is a true masterpiece in itself. Basically, your chakra will enter the earth around you and mimic its atomic structure and density to that of your muscles, tissues, and limbs. This will increase your strength immensely as your arm will have the strength and hardness of earth, so it'll be like hitting someone with a boulder. However, this jutsu cannot be used in a large scale, at most, only an arm or leg, but not both and definitely not your entire body. This jutsu works on an atomic level, which is further than any jutsu known to us, which means I'll have to find a hand seal sequence that can compress it to that level. This will also affect your nerves and blood in that area, so I had to expand the jutsu from there to ensure you don't lose your ability to use your limbs. Surprisingly, I'm pretty sure this jutsu won't require much chakra as long as you have perfect chakra control, but I could be wrong. Since you're working at an atomic level, it'll probably require large amounts of chakra to perform it. I can say this right now that no one will ever be able to copy this, even with the Sharingan, as it requires a full understanding, otherwise the user can kill him or herself. Since the chakra will be temporarily arranging your atoms into the same structure as rock and stone, it can be fatal to use it in areas that involve vital organs. I guess I should also say that the chakra will also be working on a cellular level to ensure that they can still function even though the atomic structure is different. This is also why I don't want to risk using this jutsu on other body parts like the head or torso, as a slight error can cause you to die after petrifying your brain or organs. A few easier ways to master this jutsu comes down to two different ways. The first way was to apply a seal which would revert the person back to her original form immediately after a jutsu, as well as make their atomic structure more flexible when being manipulated by the person's chakra. I have Dad's Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique. Seals used those exact principles. The only difference was he vibrated his atoms and changed the structure to be more durable to cope with speed when all we need is to change the atomic structure to mimic the Earth. Now as for the second method, it's so obvious but surprisingly difficult at the same time. Just use shadow clones. Since they can increase your training and they are separate bodies for you to practice getting the right technique down. In other words, if you use this jutsu, then hello, strength close to that of Tsunade of the Sannin. Naruto chirped while the other three ninjas were gaping like fish out of water. And finally the last jutsu is Sweden. Akuhei Bakufu no Jutsu, Water Release, Hydra Blast technique. Basically, it's a more powerful version of the water dragon because it's actually three-headed and has roughly 3 times the power and water pressure behind it. If I finish and master all these jutsu, I can determine their true ranks, but I am positive that 2 of them are easily S rank, primarily Sweden. Akuhei Bakufu no Jutsu, Water Release, Hydra Blast technique, and Doden. Kyojin Chikara, Earth Release. Titan's Might. Naruto had finished, and the blonde was reviewing the necessary hand signs for each jutsu. The flashback concludes Haku is working on Hyuden. Surara Danmaku no Jutsu, Ice Release, Icicle Barrage technique, and Hyuden. Hai Shimo no Jutsu, Ice Release, Creeping Frost technique, while Sasuke has been working on Kaden. Haya Arashi no Jutsu, Fire Release, Fire Arrow Storm technique. Once he masters that, he will attempt to master Raiden. Kusari no Inazuma, Lightning Release, Chain of Lightning. Kakashi has been working on mastering Raiden. Kusari no Inazuma, Lightning Release, Chain of Lightning, since Naruto finished creating the hand signs for the jutsus. When Haku and Kakashi first attempted the ones they're working on, they discovered that the quantity of seals and chakra required to execute them is the reason they're close to B and A rank. Kakashi uses his shadow clones and the sporadic bandit camps they encounter as 2 methods to practice his jutsu. The first time he practiced his new jutsu is still fresh in his mind. Rewind. Kakashi quickly started learning the seals by heart before rehearsing the sequence without incorporating any chakra. Once he was happy, he gave the paper back to Naruto, who sealed it right away. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 10 clones instantly materialized on the ship's platform and were waiting in front of Kakashi. Okay sensei, try using the jutsu on these guys while I back away. I don't want to get hit by accident. Make sure you focus in your mind what targets you want the lightning to hit. After giving a nod, Kakashi started looking through the seals. The copy.nin exploded. Raiden. Kusari no Inazuma, Lightning Release, Chain of Lightning, and extended his right hand. From his hand, he saw a tiny lightning bolt strike one of the clones, then arc somewhat sporadically to another, where it struck but stopped. While Naruto jotted down some notes, the clones yelled in agony and disappeared in smoke. Although it was expected, Kakashi appeared disappointed by the outcome. Naruto said, "Kakashi, sensei, let me see your hand." He saw that the hand was totally unharmed, indicating that the chakra protection was functioning properly. However, the jutsu's power and honing were a little strange. Okay. It looks like you didn't add enough chakra and the honing is slightly off since the lightning bolt seemed rather sporadic. Plus, if you look at the ground, several stray lightning bolts hit the ground, which means you're losing chakra. We're going to need to make it more precise and direct. So the chakra needs to be more condensed and focused, so that would need a bird, monkey and ox seal in that specific order added to it. It should probably be after the lightning generation seals as to ensure its effectiveness. Okay sensei, try this sequence. Also, try pumping in the amount of chakra you would use for Chidori, the revised sequence. Kakashi committed it to memory quickly and executed the seals, putting a lot more chakra into the jutsu this time. Raiden. Kusari no Inazuma, Lightning Release, Chain of Lightning. This time, a much more powerful blue lightning bolt that was easily the diameter of his hand burst out of his hand and sent a powerful blast of energy at the closest clone. The lightning condensed inside the clone and exploded out toward another target as it electrified it, producing a painful scream and lighting the surrounding area. It kept doing this, striking 6 clones before vanishing. The power of the jutsu left Kakashi speechless, while Naruto just kept writing. Good job, Kakashi. Sensei. It seems that there are 2 parts behind the jutsu that I didn't first take into account. The amount of chakra you pump in would directly affect the power and the number of targets your jutsu would hit. The condensing sequence I added fixes the problem with the power, but the number is still an issue. By the looks of it, the more chakra you use, the more targets it will hit. So I would say the chakra is more like fuel for this jutsu in how far it can go. You might want to practice it more to rain in the small lightning bolts that are still hitting the ground, since that's wasting chakra, so I'd say you need a tad more control, Sensei. The voice of the instructor is the pupil. You also might want to experiment a bit with the amount of chakra you pump in to control the number of targets. Also, we need to work on how you might be able to stop the jutsu from accidentally hitting someone. The end of the flashback. As of right now, Sasuke has mastered the fire jutsu but is using his downtime to fully master all of his other techniques. Haku has mastered the first ice jutsu and is working on the second, and Kakashi is almost finished with his jutsu. Naruto is back. For the past few hours, Naruto has been skulking through the castle's hallways, mapping the area. When he comes across a weapons room, he first inspects the contents before setting up the explosives. Naruto discovered 2 scrolls containing ice, water, and some wind jutsus in one particular room. When he believed there were no more, he noticed a hole in the wall that indicated a hidden vault. The blonde discovered the switch as fast as a fox, and the safe materialized behind the solid sheet of ice. Naruto opened the safe after breaking the lock and discovered 3 large scrolls. The first was for Red Leg, a powerful taijutsu style that, according to what he read, requires the practitioner to fight exclusively with his legs. Perhaps, he reasoned, he could pick up this style and incorporate it into his taijutsu knowledge. He was particularly interested in the second scroll. Santoryu, also referred to as the 3-sword style, is a type of sword. 1 katana in each hand and 1 in the mouth are used in Santoryu, a style of sword fighting. This sword style encompasses a wide range of techniques, such as air-compressed projectile attacks, direct hit attacks, and high-speed attacks. Although Naruto has already mastered both his mother's and father's styles, he is learning the hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, which he can use as his primary style if he is engaged in a warlike battle. The blonde can begin practicing the Itoryu, 1-sword style, stage of the style, since he only has 2 katanas. He will advance to Nitoryu, 2-sword style, once he has mastered all of the first stage's techniques and katas. He will begin the Santoryu portion of the Kenjutsu style after creating or locating a 3rd katana. The third one, which bore the word Legendary 3, was an odd scroll. Naruto pumped some chakra into the scroll after discovering 2 sealing seals on it. The first seal opened to reveal a magnificent long blade that was at least 6 feet long. Although the bars between the blade and the hilt are significantly longer than usual, this blade has a cross guard on the hilt. The blade itself is extremely shiny and completely black, and it resembles the German Grosses Messer, a long, single-edged sword with a small curvature at the end. Since the blade was an ancient supreme-grade sword, Naruto identified it as one of the fabled blades known as Kokuto Yuru, the Black Blade Knight. 2 katanas emerged from the second seal. The first was a sharp sword with a black handle, a golden pommel, and a gold band in the center. The blade had a regular silver bottom and a black top, but the design gave the impression of waves. If he recalled correctly, this would be the Shodai Kitetsu, 1st generation demon splitter, one of the 12 supreme-grade swords of ancient times, along with the Kokuto Yuru. The second katana had a circular hand, guard and a blade that was entirely white. Although it appears to be a typical katana to most people, Naruto and sword users, including Hayate, Yugo, and of course Tenten, consider it a Maitu, legendary named blade, that is comparable to the 12 supreme-grade swords. Despite being on a mission, Naruto takes out a small black book that contains the names of all the Maitu, Seijo Owazamono, Supreme Grade Sword, Owazamono, Great Grade Sword, and other swords that have been renowned and legendary over the years. Upon researching the Maitu, Naruto discovered that the second blade is actually Wado Ichimonji, the second legendary sword of Rurino Izolo, the One Road of Harmony. After examining the jutsu scrolls he had received, Naruto sealed them in an empty sealing scroll he owned. The blonde then examined the 3 blades he now possessed before doing what all sword users do when they obtain new blades, particularly those that are thought to be cursed. Wado Ichimonji is first picked up by the blonde, who throws it upward and extends his arm. When the blade eventually begins to ascend, Naruto simply waits for it to either completely cut off his arm or strike his arm from behind so that he can wield it. The boy was relieved when the blade arced and struck his arm, enabling him to control it. He then performed the same action on Shodai Kitetsu, with identical outcomes. The boy stares at the one blade, which is thought to be the strongest in the world, after sealing the other 2 blades into a spare scroll. After Rei and the 4 elemental spirits encourage him, he musters his courage and grasps the handle of Kokuto Yuru with both hands, raising it until the black surface of the blade faces him and the tip is facing upward. After that, he raises the blade and waits for the inevitable. The blade acknowledges him as its master, much to his and those inside his head's surprise, but Naruto knows better than to consider using it until he can effectively wield it with just one hand. After that, he seals it inside the scroll containing the other 2 blades. With a quiet chuckle, Naruto wondered, "Boy, will Zabuza.san, Hayate.san, Tenten.san, and Yugo.san be furious when they see these?" Following the discovery of the scrolls in that room, Naruto proceeded to discover additional ice, wind, water, and occasionally fire scrolls. The blonde can now perform the entire Santoryu style since he has 3 katanas. If you are curious about all of his weapons, they are the 3 that he recently acquired: Shinku Raiko, Crimson Lightning, Rei's Katana, Kuro, Denku, Black Lightning, Father's Katana, and Emerald Glade and Red Rose. Mother's Kodachis. I understand that there are many weapons, but what if he lost 1 or 2? He needs a few spare blades just in case. The blonde discovered at least 20 to 25 jutsu scrolls and a design specification for the snow ninjas, chakra armor, after searching the entire castle and even entering the rooms of each ninja and dodo. He could likely make one for himself. After that, Naruto made a clone and dispatched it to alert Kakashi and the others that it was time to launch an attack. He went to see where the princess was being held while the clone went about its mission. Naruto was soon discovered in the underground dungeons, observing 2 guards in front of Koyuki's cell. He unlocked the cage by giving them both a sharp blow to the neck, which instantly knocked them out. He then looked for some keys. Upon entering the cell, he discovered the princess dozing off on a cot while wearing strange handcuffs around her arms. He shook Koyuki awake and unlocked the handcuffs, and the 2 of them stealthily left through some hallways. Returning to Kakashi and the group following hours of preparation and practice, the group is taken aback when a tri-pronged kunai strikes the tent's entrance, followed by a yellow flash that displays the Naruto clone in all its splendor. The clone then informed the group that the explosives had been set off and that they should inform him of the attack strategy in case the princess and the real blonde were caught in the crossfire. After explaining the plan to the clone, it vanished, leaving the 3 ninja alone to prepare for combat. When the 3 were prepared, they bounded to the castle through the forest. While scouting the forest late last night, Sasuke discovered the castle. A mountain was directly next to the castle, which was perched on a hillside. A medium-sized village with residents who are loyal to Dodo but actually support the rebels was located directly beneath the castle. When the 3 arrived at the edge of the village, they divided into 2 groups. Kakashi and Sasuke went off to divert the attention of the castle guard and the snow nin, while Haku and Vaughn went in search of the princess and Naruto. With Sasuke and Kakashi, both of them are perched on a precipice with a view of the front gate. There were roughly 40 guards on top of the walls, 5 in each of the 2 towers, and 10 on the ground. The silver-haired nin hands Sasuke a small black earpiece, which he quickly sets the frequency for, puts in his ear, and tests before giving the thumbs up to Kakashi. "Okay, We will use this to communicate between each other so when I can warn you of incoming attacks from your blind side and direct you from up top. The raven-haired boy nods, and the two jump down while making a number of hand signs before yelling out. Kaiten. Gukakyu no Jutsu, Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique. Raiden. Kusari no Inazuma, Lightning Release, Chain of Lightning. In a matter of seconds, the massive fireball that erupted from Sasuke's mouth struck the front gate, destroying the guards and causing the gate to blow up. A huge blue lightning bolt erupted from Kakashi's hand during that moment, striking the first guard, who screamed in agony before passing away. Then, in a matter of seconds, the lightning arced over dozens of the guards, instantly killing them until only 8 of the original 40 were left, and they perished with a simple shuriken to the heart or jugular. All of the guards acted when the alarms began to sound as a result of the fireball's explosion. With Vaughn and Haku and Vaughn were hopping to their blonde lover, partner's planned exit along the hillside. They heard the alarms go off, indicating that the attack had begun, just as they were about to land at the location where they would meet Naruto. They then quickened their pace and arrived at the clearing, where Naruto and Koyuki were waiting for them, already seated. A mop of blonde hair quickly tackled Haku and Vaughn after they landed in the clearing. Naruto joyfully exclaimed, "Haku-chan, Vaughn," and then gave his sweetheart a passionate kiss, which she returned with pleasure. Haku exclaimed with joy, "Hey Naruto-kun." Haku nodded when the blonde said, "So from the sound of the alarms I'd say Kakashi, Nissan and Sasuke are assaulting the castle." "Right, and when you give the order I will let them know that you will be blowing this place sky high," said the brunette. While the other 3 merely giggled, or, in Vaughn's case, laughed, Naruto smiled slyly and said, "All right, telling them to move out Haku-chan and also tell them to get some popcorn because this will quite a show." Haku radioed Kakashi to pull out after she had calmed down and gotten on the communicator. With Sasuke and Kakashi, a number of additional guards attacked the two after they had passed the front gate, but they posed no threat to the skilled ninjas they were. The two became somewhat weary after 200 guards, until Kakashi began to hear static on the communicator. He hears Haku telling him and Sasuke to pull out as he extends the device's range. "Hi," Kakashi says as he leaps off the castle wall to where Sasuke is surrounded by 30 guards. They were all destroyed by a swift Kaiten. Gukakyu no Jutsu, Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique. Then, Kakashi touched down directly beside Sasuke. Kakashi said, "Come on Sasuke, let's go." Haku radioed in that Naruto is going to send this place to hell, and I want front row seats with popcorn, of course. Sasuke nodded, and the two began to flee, confusing the guards but not the ninja in the main tower, who then rushed to warn Dodo. Kakashi radioed to Haku that they were safe and that Naruto could set off the bombs when the two returned to the cliff where they had been before. After finishing that, he took a seat and took out some popcorn, which Sasuke wouldn't notice because it was free food. While eating popcorn, they both sat on the ledge with a view of the castle, anticipating the upcoming fireworks. Returning with Haku and Naruto, the group immediately began moving in the direction of the meeting spot that Kakashi had selected after Haku radioed Kakashi. Haku concluded that Kakashi and Sasuke had safely escaped when the communicator suddenly began to produce static. She then passed the message along to her lover, who nodded. "All right, let's pick up the pace cause I want to be in front row when the fireworks go off," said Naruto. Naruto placed his hands in a ram seal after climbing onto a ledge, then yelled, "Katsu," while displaying his chakra. A few seconds later, the castle's main house exploded into a massive fire, and the ground began to tremble with explosions. The screams of the numerous surviving guards can be heard as fire erupts through the ground in multiple areas of the castle grounds. Overall, the entire scene was ideal for pyromaniacs. At that moment, signs indicating 9.5, 9.1, and 10 were pulled out by Haku, Vaughn, and Koyuki, respectively. Then, following the spectacular explosion, they took off once more. 10 minutes later, the group touched down on the cliff where Kakashi and Sasuke were sitting. Vaughn ordered Koyuki to leave and took him to the village, while the 4 ninjas went in search of Dodo and the snow ninja. The group searched the castle thoroughly for 30 minutes without finding any indication of Dodo's whereabouts. Then, to aid in the search, Kakashi called upon Pakun. "What is it, Kakashi?" Pakun's harsh voice asked. Naruto then produced a torn article of Datu's clothing that he had taken in case the fucking man escaped, saying, "I need you to sniff out the man called Dodo here as a piece of his clothes." After giving it to Kakashi, he allowed the pug to sniff the cloth. The ninja hound then began sniffing around until he raised his head in the air. Pakun said, "I got his scent, follow me," and then he fled, leaving the four in his wake. When a huge ice spike emerges from the ground while the group is following Pakun, they split apart after feeling a surge of chakra. Then, as the group, who were divided, regained their bearing, Kakuyoku Fubuki, Ruga Nadare, and Fuyuguma Mizore showed up. Without an assailant, Naruto continued to move alongside Van. Haku opposed Ruga, Sasuke vs Mizore, and Fubuki. Regarding Haku vs Fubuki, "Damn, what the hell hit us?" Haku asks, standing up with her aching head. No one answers, but someone above does. When Haku looked up, he saw Fubuki on a tree branch wearing her chakra armor. "We did, you little bitch." Fubuki turned red when Haku smirked and said, well, if it isn't Pinky's long lost twin. Sakura's mother must have had sex with some unlucky man for you to be born. That's it, bitch." Fubuki then charged Haku without thinking, causing the ice princess to snicker at the foolishness of the pink-haired girl. Haku threw Senbon at the other girl while jumping out of the way, but they bounced off the armor because they contained chakra. With a resurrected fist, Fubuki charged once more, punching Haku in the stomach before kneeing her in the temple, which caused her to flail back. The combo was countered by Haku, who sent Fubuki flying back into a tree with a snap kick to her face. After that, she lunged forward and knocked the girl down with 2 punches to the stomach, followed by a leg sweep that made the girl lose her balance. After that, Haku struck Fubuki in the middle with an axe, sending her crashing to the ground and causing her to cough up blood. She ducked as Fubuki attempted to give her a roundhouse kick to the face, but Haku picked her up and threw her into a tree, saying, "That armor of yours may work for genjutsu and ninjutsu, but when it comes to taijutsu, it is just a piece of metal." Then, thanks to Naruto, she leapt away and began performing hand seals for her newest jutsu. Hyeten. Surara Danmaku no Jutsu, Ice Release. Icicle Barrage Technique, 4 to 5-3 foot. Long ice spikes emerged from the snow surrounding Haku and swiftly flew in the direction of Fubuki. Fubuki was undoubtedly shocked to see the armor's shield break because she had placed too much trust in it. 3 of the spikes broke with the shield, and the other 2 struck her in the stomach and right shoulder at the joint, causing her to scream in agony. The suit also has a limit to how much it can withstand, seeing as it may be a prototype. Haku approached her with a frown and shook her head. "I respect you for being a worthy opponent." Fubuki then instinctively lunged at Haku, only to be stabbed in the neck and heart by 3 senbon each. In order to allow the leaf to later retrieve information and other things from her mind, Haku shook her head as she sealed the body away. She then looked around to see which chakra signals were closest to her location and began moving in that direction after noticing Sasuke's. With Sasuke following the split after landing on a tree branch, Sasuke used his Sharingan eyes to scan the area. His instincts told him to jump at that very moment, and he was relieved to do so after noticing that the branch he was on had broken from what appeared to be a mechanical hand. He saw Fuyuguma Mizore approaching him on his board as he traced the cable back to its source. Sasuke then screamed out, "Kaden! Hosenka no Jutsu, Fire Release. Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique," after making a number of hand signs with Tora. As a result, several basketball-sized fireballs erupted from his mouth and were directed directly at Mizore. With the increased mobility provided by the board, Mizore began to dodge the majority of the fireballs, while the ones that appeared to be about to strike were absorbed by the armor. Mizore's left forearm stopped Sasuke's axe kick as he came out of the spin after falling down spinning. Sasuke chased after Mizore after he grabbed his ankle and threw him away. Sasuke skids to a halt and glances up just in time to avoid Mizore's blow. The giant was pushed back a few feet when he countered by pivoting on his left foot and kicking him in the gut with his right foot. He then used his hands to perform a handstand kick to Mizore's chin. Not wanting to lose, Mizore returned and began to outmaneuver the boy, but the boy was evading every move he made, which only made him more irate. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu, Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique. As Sasuke's signature hand sign, and he leaps back when he sees Mizore growing angrier. A fireball the size of an elephant erupted from his mouth, screaming in Mizore's direction, destroying trees and quickly vaporizing the snow as it passed. With few defensive jutsus, Mizore uses the strongest offensive jutsus he knows to try to weaken the incoming fireball. Hayaten. Haryu Muko, Ice Release. Piercing Dragon Fierce Tiger. Then, a large ice carved tiger emerged from the snow and headed directly for the fireball. The Gukakyu grew slightly and turned semi-white when Sasuke saw this, pumped and channeled fire chakra into it. The Gukakyu easily defeated the ice tiger thanks to the power boost, losing only a small amount of its strength. When Mizore's jutsu failed, he attempted to jump away, but the fireball burned his right leg to a crisp after passing through the chakra armor like Haku jutsu to Fubuki's armor. When he landed with the burned stump that had once been his usable leg, he let out a cry of pain and agony. After quickly verifying that Mizore's ice jutsu was stored for later, Sasuke deactivates his Sharingan after realizing his opponent is down. When he saw Haku drop into the new clearing, he dropped his guard after noticing a chakra signal approaching. He glances at the battlefield, now aware of the damage. A path was carved through the snow and ground by the fire jutsu. Many trees were black and burning from the Gukakyu, and some shuriken were stuck in some trees from the Kaiten. Hosenka no Jutsu. Fire Release. Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. He gathered his belongings, nodded to Haku, who returned the nod, and then crossed the fallen snow nin. The enhanced Gukakyu's intense fire turned Mizore's leg completely black. The raven-haired boy kills Mizore instantly by throwing a kunai into his heart without a word. Then he turns and sees Haku approaching him. As she sealed Mizore's body up the way she had sealed Fubuki's, Haku remarked, "We better head over to Kakashi-san and see if we can help. I felt Naruto-kun head on a head after being separated." Sasuke snarls in frustration, "Today just keeps getting better and better, Haku?" Which makes Haku laugh. Haku joked, making both of them laugh at the recollection of a ticked-off blonde. "You know, just now you sounded like Naruto-kun when we went on that mission to Bird Country and got ambushed by many bandit camps." Haku nodded as Sasuke sighed. "Brings back memories, Haku?" Sasuke jumped off with Haku, who giggled at the nicknames, after saying, "Well, I would love to stay and reminisce, but we have a blonde time bomb and a dog lover to go catch up to." After the split, with Kakashi clang a thump. Clank as two blurs engaged in combat. Those were the only noises audible in the clearing. With his headband up, Kakashi was facing Ruga Nader, who was also holding a kunai. Since the others were separated, the two have been fighting for roughly 2 minutes. After that, the two leapt into the air once more and turned into blurs. The two leap away following another minute of kunai collisions, blocking, dodging, and delivering punches and kicks to one another. With a slight gasp, Kakashi gives Kaden Karyuden, Fire Style. Fire Dragon Projectile. A few hand signals. Kakashi launches a massive fire dragon in Ruga's direction. For Hyouden, Ruga was simultaneously practicing his own hand signs. Ruga Nader no Jutsu, Ice Style. Wolf Fang Avalanche. An avalanche that formed into multiple enormous wolves of snow and ice came from the mountainside. When the two attacks collided, a lot of steam filled the air. Kakashi took advantage of this by whispering, "Hidden Mist Jutsu," and making a few hand gestures. It became even more difficult to see as the steam thickened. After expressing gratitude to Zabuza for teaching him the art of silent killing, Kakashi replaced his headband over his Sharingan, closed his other eye, and began using his other primary senses, such as smell and hearing. Ruga was wary because, judging by the perspiration streaming down his face, the heat was starting to get to him and the steam was becoming thicker. Nader shouted in all directions, turning himself into a homing beacon for the Sharingan warrior. "Whatever you are doing, Kakashi won't work. You're just making yourself less visible as well." However, Kakashi simply remained silent and, with practiced ease, crept up behind Nader while holding a kunai. Utilizing a technique he learned from Zabuza, who was able to sound like a ventriloquist by launching his voice through the fog. To Kakashi's amusement, a tick mark appeared on Ruga's head, saying, I wonder how much of an idiot you truly are, Nader." He demonstrated by slashing a startled snow nin across the chest before vanishing once more as Ruga screamed in agony. Just because I can't see doesn't mean I can't kill you with using my other senses. This was the scene that Sasuke and Haku approached. They could hear all of Ruga's agonized cries and Kakashi's taunts as they huddled on a tree branch far from the fog. If the two young leaf nins' laughter and giggling were any guide, Kakashi's remarks to the poor snow nin were pretty amusing. Kakashi, who for a moment almost sounded like Zabuza, said, "Well, it sounds like my team is here, meaning that your two companions are dead in a ditch somewhere, though I could give a damn." Haku shuddered at the idea of another Zabuza in Leaf. Kakashi sighed and Haku and Sasuke's eyes twitched as Ruga yelled, "Ha, like those brats can actually kill skilled ninja. They're what? Less than 10 years old and you expect them to be able to kill trained ninja? Ha, thanks for the laugh." Sasuke was preventing himself from going down there and embarrassing himself by attempting to kick Ruga's stupid ass. However, Ruga simply looks in all directions until hundreds of shatters are heard, and then one large shatter causes him to look down at the broken chakra power source. Haku, on the other hand, knows where Ruga was blurred through her favorite set of hand signs, Hyouden. Sensatsu Suisho, ice style. Death by 1,000 flying water needles. And she yells out this warning to Kakashi, who jumps away from Ruga. He leaves this plane of existence as a result of the next event. 1,000 birds can be heard chirping in the mist. Chidori! Kakashi exclaims before running directly at Ruga, who is attempting to locate the source of the chirping sound until it is too late and he is struck in the heart by a Chidori, which Kakashi's hand drives through his chest like a hot knife to butter. After removing his hand and shaking it to get rid of any extra blood, Kakashi cancels the hidden mist. The mist immediately begins to clear after the chakra that was causing it to do so is removed, and the two young leaf nin leap down to their leader. Haku joked, "You have fun, Kakashi-san?" which made Kakashi laugh in shame, much to Sasuke's amusement. Kakashi pulled out his book, Legend of the Gutsy Ninja by Jiraiya the Gamasanin, and said, "Yeah, it's fun to make your opponent angry like that, and also he didn't know who he really was dealing with because the last time he really fought me was about 12.13 years ago. If it weren't for Naruto getting me back in business, then I would have had a rougher time with him." Sasuke proposed, "Come on, let's go catch up with Naruto before he gets himself in trouble." The two nodded, and the three then started to follow our blonde hero. Following their separation, with Naruto and Vaughn, our blonde boy is hopping from tree to tree at a breakneck pace. He was following Datu's trail after Koyuki informed him that Dodo had stolen the necklace from her while she was in the throne room. He and Vaughn were coming up with plans on how to combat Dodo when they got to him while he was working on it. As he hopped among the trees, Naruto asked Vaughn, "Do you want me to face him alone, or should we surprise him with a Gatsuga?" "Well, at first it should be you, then we should mix it up so he won't be able to predict our attacks," Vaughn offered. "Well, that sounds like it will work. Just get ready for anything, brother," replied the brunette. Vaughn said inaudibly, "And you too, brother, since you never see them apart, the two of them are essentially blood brothers. Let's take a look at Datu's whereabouts while those two are pursuing him." As the man flew in the direction of a village, his spies informed him that Koyuki would be present because the ninja were based there prior to their attack. He was therefore immediately on his way to where he believed Koyuki to be in order to obtain the hexagonal necklace from her and claim the ultimate power that his brother had told him about. He could use that power to lead Snow Country to conquer the world of ninjas. The man had no idea that Princess Koyuki Kazuhana, who was now in the running, was directly beneath him. While Naruto informed her that Sandayu was waiting for her, she was rushing to the village shown on the map he had given her. She sincerely hoped the blonde boy would defeat Dodo. She took a brief break and rested against a tree. As she looked up, her eyes widened and she let out a rather loud gasp. When Dodo heard a loud gasp, his ninja hearing allowed him to look down. His eyes only slightly widened before he gave a menacing smile upon realizing that his niece was standing directly below him. He shot down without giving it much thought while the girl was still in shock. When he got close enough, he grabbed her and flew to the location of the ultimate power, according to legend. After waking from her stunned daze, Koyuki attempted to escape her uncle's hold, but she yelled in surprise when she realized she was in the air and clung to him, refusing to die just yet. Let's go back to Vaughn and Blonde. For what seems like 9 or 10 minutes, Naruto and Vaughn have been hopping. When they hear a yelp, they look up and are shocked to see Dodo flying away with Koyuki in his arms. Naruto hurried after them, Vaughn at his heels, swearing so loudly that Anko would blush with shame. Following Dodo to what appears to be an ice valley with 6 or 7 strange-looking towers of ice encircling the main valley, the two were hopping through the trees for nearly 5 minutes as if they were under a spell. At the moment, Dodo and Koyuki were standing in a sort of shrine in the center of the valley. Naruto stayed to the side to observe what would happen because he didn't want to rush in. About 2 minutes ago, he sensed that the chakra spikes coming from Haku, the others, and the snow nin had stopped, indicating that they had either won or lost, and Naruto undoubtedly hoped they had. Anyway, let's get back on course. With Koyuki and Dodo as he lowered and inserted the hexagonal necklace into the tiny hole, Dodo turned it like a key, excited to see his ultimate treasure. He released the necklace upon hearing a click, and after a brief period of silence, he heard the faint sound of rushing water. Turning around, he and Koyuki see that the ice has begun to gradually melt all around them. Snow was melting from the rocks and steam was emerging from ice fissures. Naruto watched the event from a distance and surmised that the ultimate treasure was a generator or heater of some size to begin melting the ice in the entire half-mile diameter valley. Koyuki asked herself, "What is this? It's so warm." Dodo was furious, roaring, "What the? A heat generator? The hidden treasure of the Kazuhana clan is a stupid heat generator." He had been expecting something more akin to an artifact with dangerous powers, but this was completely different. A voice behind the two said, "Well, I actually saw this coming." As they turned, Naruto gave Dodo a fistful of blows, sending him sliding across the ice and into a rock formation. Naruto.kun. Koyuki exclaims, startled, "Hey, good thing I got here just in time." The shouting of Hyouden, Kokuryu Buyusetsu, ice style, Black Dragon Blizzard, interrupted the blonde. Then, out of the smoke where Dodo is, a large black dragon charged straight at Naruto, forcing him to pick up Koyuki and jump far away. The dragon slammed into the ice, breaking it and causing the freezing cold water below the ice to reveal itself. After setting Koyuki down, Naruto turned to see Dodo running at him, his hand cocked back for a punch. Not wanting to give the big loaf the upper hand, Naruto began running at Dodo, and a blur appeared running next to the blonde, indicating that it was Vaughn. With a nod, they performed the first technique for the Kitsune. Shikan. Ryu. Gatsuga. Yes, I am aware that it is an Inuzuka move, but hey, they are the only known animal clan. Naruto and Vaughn then began spinning, producing 2 enormous drills that blasted like rockets in Dado's direction. Dodo immediately leapt out of the way when he saw this, and when the 2 drills struck the rock crater he had created, he was startled and a little scared because the crater had tripled in size and quadrupled in depth. The man attempted to dodge again, but was struck on the left side of his torso, causing him to scream in pain. As he stood up and performed hand signs, Dodo faced the drills and then pushed his palms outwards while yelling, "Hyouden. Saoryu Buyusetsu, ice style. Twin Dragon Blizzard," as 2 large black ethereal dragons roared towards Naruto and Vaughn. When Naruto saw the impending attack, he began to push out wind chakra from every chakra point on his body, turning his drills into a vortex. With the added speed boost from the wind chakra, he shot ahead of Vaughn and crashed into the 2 dragons, shouting out, "Futon. Gatsuga." The 2 attacks collided, and a huge explosion rocked the icy ground, sending ice flying in all directions, forcing Vaughn to dodge them. Then, a large, widespread white flame emerged from the smoke, instantly tearing through the ice, creating a 2-foot thick wall of water around him. When the 2 jutsu collided, a massive explosion of steam erupted, burning Dodo significantly. The blonde, fox, and princess gazed into the massive buildup of steam while listening to the screams of pain emanating from within. Naruto, being the cautious type, put his hands to his mouth and then sucked in his breath while pouring a lot of wind chakra into his lungs. When he was at his best, he began to blow out, yelling, "Futon. Diatapa." Koyuki gasped before turning and throwing up her dinner from the previous evening, and Naruto cringed at the sight while Vaughn turned his head. What they were looking at was a barely alive Dodo who was burned beyond recognition. His face was so burned that it was bleeding from his mouth, eyes, and nose. The steam was so hot that the metal on the chakra armor slightly melted. Datu's arms that were unprotected were just like his face, bleeding and charred from the steam. Naruto, wanting to end the poor man's life so he can stop suffering, bit his thumb before swiping the digit over the tattoo with the kanji for Black Lightning on it. In a poof, out came Minato's legendary blade Kuro Denku in its sheath. Naruto then put the blade in his belt on his left side and got into a stance with his left thumb pressed up under the guard for faster release and his right hand gripped onto the handle. His body was turned with his right foot out front with his left behind. The blonde is now in the legendary Batu Jutsu stance of the hidden Mitsurugi style. If you do not know, in seconds Naruto's happy-go-lucky attitude disappears, and in its place is a look that would even scare Orochimaru and static Itachi. A face of total and completely emotionless. Creepy, isn't it? After taking a deep breath, Naruto vanishes so quickly that an afterimage is left behind. Koyuki and Vaughn see Naruto in a sort of crouching position, slowly putting his blade back into its sheath, and when the blade clicks fully into the sheath, Datu's body explodes in a gush of blood, and limbs simply fall to the ground. Naruto simply turns around and prays for Datu's death before sealing his head away. When the three believe it is all over, they hear a cracking sound, and they turn to see the pillar of ice closest to Naruto begin to crack before a couple of pieces fall down. This is the scene that Kakashi, Haku, and Sasuke entered. The entire ground abruptly changed into a valley of grass and flowers instead of ice, and as the sun finally rose and revealed its splendor over the now flower-filled valley, two voices could be heard. Everyone turned to face the center of the valley, where a massive three-dimensional image of a young Koyuki appeared, and after a little while, Koyuki's father appeared, and the two began speaking. I won't repeat the exchange because it is annoying. Everyone was laughing, giggling, or chuckling at the end, and Koyuki was crying too. For the first time in nearly 15 years. Naruto grinned at Koyuki's happiness before turning to speak to his first love. Rei. Quit a happy ending. Hello, Naruto.kun. It's a satisfying conclusion to a lengthy tale. The blonde said, glancing at his arms and lower legs, I can't wait to get you out into the real world, Rei. The seal we are working on is getting close to being complete, and the sooner the better because so far I am about 30% Hanyu. Naruto.kun, don't worry, we'll get it on schedule. To ensure nothing negative occurs, we must first complete the seal and then wait until after the rebirth before using it. Naruto said in a kind voice, well, I hope nothing happens because I can't lose the first being that I fell in love. I love you, Naruto.kun. When Naruto sensed a familiar presence approaching, he said, love you too, Rei. Before cutting the connection. Sasuke, Kakashi, and Haku leapt from their perch and landed next to Koyuki while Naruto and Rei were conversing. They looked around at the beauty before turning to face Koyuki and the blonde-haired boy in the distance. Kakashi began questioning Koyuki about what had happened, and Haku approached Naruto, seeing the mound of flesh that had once been Dodo with disgust and a little green from the blood. When Haku was within 3 meters of her blonde-haired lover, she noticed he was in a slight trance and assumed he was speaking to Rei. Just 2 seconds later, Naruto jolted out of his reverie and turned to face Haku, who was less than a meter away. He gave her a gentle smile before embracing her and kissing her forehead. Haku returned the embrace and remained in his arms for a while. Feeling a little worn out from using multiple jutsu, Naruto sat down with Haku contentedly leaning against his chest on his lap, and she cuddled him even more before looking up and kissing the blonde under the chin, which made the blonde laugh. Haku turned red at the sign and then pouted as Naruto teased, calm down, Haku-chan. We can't do anything that far just yet. Naruto finds it difficult to resist the temptation to make out with her there and then in front of the others after Haku pouts and says, no need to tease, Naruto.kun. The blonde, muttering, must resist cuteness, repeatedly, causing Haku to laugh. Haku's adorable voice said, Naruto.kun, you know you can never resist little ol' me. Naruto's defenses were lowered, and he began making out with her there, causing her to moan in his mouth. When they were finished, they were both exhausted and blushing a little. Haku nodded in agreement as Naruto muttered, man, that was good. Once everything was in order, Kakashi approached the two lovers and told them to prepare to leave. After getting 2 nods, Kakashi went to tell Sasuke, who was out sightseeing, about it. In the main palace the following day a week ago, Princess Koyuki was a snot-nosed brat with confidence issues. Like a certain Hyuga heiress. But now she is going to prove herself as a country's leader. Here, we see her being sworn in as the leader of the now named Spring Country, while Sandayu, Naruto with Vaughn on his head, Haku, Kakashi, and Sasuke look up with glad smiles for the change in the girl's life. After a brief conversation with Koyuki, who revealed that she would continue to be an actress and would even appear in the upcoming Icha Icha Paradise movie, much to the dismay of Naruto and Haku, the group was ready to head home, go on vacation, and unwind. Or, in Naruto's terms, train. Kakashi had that one rare moment of reverting to his former self, laughing and blushing, before Naruto struck him over the head to remind him that he was on a mission. After 3 days only after the group caught and killed a couple D rank, C rank, and 1 B rank missing nin. 3 from Kiri, 5 from Leaf, 2 from Kumo, and the B rank from Iwa, did the trio with the fox safely return to Konoha. They then turned in the snow nin to the hunter and the several heads to the bounty office before heading to the tower to turn in the report. The office of the Hokage, we find Team Fox and Kakashi standing in front of the third Hokage in the office. The third Hokage was grinning with praise as they told him the entire report, from the encounter on the iceberg to the moment Dodo was killed by Naruto's hidden Mitsurugi-style kill. In particular, when a certain purple-haired Anbu, Yugo Uzuki, a sickly Jonin, Gekko Hayate, and an aspiring weapon mistress, you're an idiot if you don't know her name, learned that Naruto knew and was learning the fabled lost art, they were shocked and almost drowned the young blonde with questions about how he learned it and how he even found out about it. The blonde told them that he had discovered a scroll in his family vault, which he knew was a big lie, but to his amazement, they accepted it. Naruto knew that once word spread that he possessed 3 of the most potent and legendary blades in the world. Every known and aspiring Kenjutsu user would be vying for them, and he didn't want Leaf to have to deal with more trouble already. After the report was finished, Naruto and Kakashi remained, and Naruto told the third about his new creations. Although the third was in his 70s and is known as the Professor because of his skill in the Second and Third Wars, where he killed numerous battalions of Iwa, Aim, Suna, and Grass Shinobi, the third was still perplexed by the creativity of the jutsus that Naruto had created. The third, of course, wanted to see the jutsu in action, and since Naruto was the one who created them, he was the first to master them, which caught Kakashi off guard, but dismissed it because Naruto never sleeps that long when he wants to learn new jutsu. It would be an understatement to say that the third and Kakashi were taken aback when Naruto displayed the Doden. Kyojin Chikara, Earth Release. Titan's Might. The blonde's jutsu made her nearly as strong as Tsunade, and that's saying something. Naruto used the jutsu to crush a mountain with a supercharged punch that was felt for miles, causing complaints that the third chose to ignore. Afterwards, after everything was finished and documented, Naruto left the office to go home and begin 2 new exercises he had come up with for chakra control. The first was using chakra to hold Senbon and Kunai to his body while avoiding being stabbed by them. The second was using chakra to attach strings of chakra to inanimate objects, such as puppets. And the third was using pure chakra to create kunai, senbon, and other weapons or defense. For the rest of the year, that's what transpired. The blonde has been meditating while having his multiple chakras flowing through him, and during the remaining 4 months, Naruto has been working on mastering the earth chakra by mastering iron manipulation. When the wind chakra is flowing through him, he feels at peace, water flows like a river, and fire covers him, burning everything around him but not him. After he has mastered the 5 primary elements in ice, he will begin working on wood, metal, sand, and magma, starting with wood since Yamato will be able to assist him. During the blonde's Kenjutsu training, Naruto learned his mother's style, his father's style, and the third technique, hidden Mitsurugi, which he has been using every day to get a feel for Wado Ichimonji, Kokuto Yuru, and Shodai Kitetsu. Naruto was eager to begin Santoryu because he thought it would be a perfect style to use in any battle. But hidden Mitsurugi would still be one of the main styles to master because it is legendary and can only be passed down from master to apprentice, meaning that there is only one true user in the world once the apprentice kills the master for the final technique. The Nin, General, and Tai Jutsu of Naruto have all been rising as usual, and every few days, he invents a new jutsu while his clones practice it to a limited degree of chakra usage. Naruto has a number of names in the bingo books across the countries, including Kazuryu of Konoha, Wind Dragon of Konoha, Sojuko Kitsune Senjoku, Elemental Fox Flash, and Shunshin no Naruto. Having created tensions in his practice on Hirishin, he has so far been able to fully master the technique, and he is using all of the clones that were practicing it to help him work on Shunpo no Jutsu. As for Naruto's Genjutsu, he has most of the D and C ranked ones down, but still needs to work on them. He can disperse any Genjutsu almost instantly after realizing that one was on him, and he can now perform the majority of human C and B ranked Genjutsu with limited chakra, control, and hand signs. Rei informed Naruto that she would not teach him any Inipo ninjutsu until after his rebirth, because he would require demonic chakra and would receive a second chakra coil system for his own demon chakra when the blonde turned half demon. While another group was developing a new secret style of taijutsu, Naruto and Vaughn were very good at the kitsune, shikan, ryu, fox, claw style. Naruto's taijutsu is progressing well as the blonde mastered taekwondo, aikido, its combo, his mother's style Rikoku Ken, Ryu, his father's hummingbird style, the combination of them, and iron skin style. At the moment, Naruto is sparring with several clones to avoid getting rusty. As he continues to develop and master more ninjutsu from the clan library and his spirits, Naruto's ninjutsu repertoire continues to expand. He currently possesses A class jutsu for wind, B class for fire, ice, and water, and C and low B class earth and lightning. He also has all D and C class jutsu for wind, ice, fire, and water, down to the point where he doesn't require hand signs.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.